Ladies, we all set?
Sorry. There's a lot going on, Mr. Chairman, in our world that we're discussing.
There's about to be a little bit more. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to open up tonight's Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, October 19th, 2023. We are meeting in the quiet meeting room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North. Our meeting is being broadcast live on local cable channel 8 and also streamed live on the Town of Mashpee website. Before we begin tonight's meeting, if you would like to join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to begin tonight with a moment of silence in remembrance of all of the victims in the conflict in Israel. Thank you. Okay. We'll start with public comment. If there is anyone that would like to address the commission for any issues not related to agenda items that we have tonight, this would be the time. Anybody? No? Matt, not interested in that? Anybody online that wants to talk with us?
Anyone on the phone who wishes to have public comment on any non-agenda items?
Yes, we're good. Okay. All right. I think I'll forego the pre- and post-hearing agenda items and go right to the first hearing.
Although there's a continuance. And then.
Yeah, I'm going to call
Okay.
that out. and
Okay. I
We'll
was
go
just
right
making sure we
through it.
weren't past the time.
I'm going to call the 6 o'clock hearing for 61 Shoestring Bay Road, 61 Shoestring Bay Road LLC. This is a proposed final house footprint with associated landscaping, hardscaping appurtenances, and utilities. The representative is WRS Engineering LLC. This is continued from August 24th and September 7th. It's an amended order of conditions, DEP file number 433062. And we have a request for a continuance to November 2nd at 6:12 to finalize their plan based on the revisions that they're making. So I would accept a motion for that.
So moved.
Thank you, Steve.
Second?
Thank you, Aaron. Is there any discussion? We have a first and second on that motion. No discussion? Hearing none, I will call the vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well, so that motion carries unanimously. Okay. Now calling the 6:03 hearing for 275 Quiniquisette Avenue, Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC. This is a proposed construction and maintenance of 14 single-family homes with paved driveway, sidewalk, drainage systems, and associated utilities. Representative is Baxter Nye Engineering and Surveying. This is continued from 5/4, 6/15, 7/13, and 9/21. The notice of intent, DEP file number 433257. Before we begin, due to the files coming in today, that's when I saw them, I certainly want to hear what Mr. Eddy has to say and present to us, but I would be opposed to go into any type of deliberation on the issues until all of the commissioners have had a chance to view the files, look at the plans, compare them to the regulations, and then we would come back at a subsequent meeting and ask our questions and deliberate at that point. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah. What about the peer review?
I would certainly like to get to that, yes, once we hear
Okay.
everything. And if the applicant is ready for that, that's how we left it. It would be the applicant that would request that. So
Okay.
if he does, and we're all good with that, I'll accept the motion for that, certainly.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Good
Name for
evening.
the
No,
record, please.
absolutely, that makes 100% sense, and this is really a procedural step tonight. For the record, Matthew Eddy, professional engineer with Baxter and I Engineering and Surveying, representing Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC. I brought 4 hard copies of what I submitted yesterday via PDF that I'm going to bring up to you. I obviously do not expect you to digest this tonight, but Drew did ask me to bring some hard copies, so I'd like to bring those up now.
Is this what you refer to as light reading?
Thank you.
Put a ribbon around it, it looks like a Christmas gift.
So, as the chair just described and explained, this has been continued. I'm sure you're all familiar with the background. The last formal discussions we had were back in May. Just quick synopsis, the plans that we've submitted as we've been going through the planning board process over the past several months. The changes to the plans, it started out as 14 units, you may recall. We're down to 12 units now. We have relocated, there's the Village Green area that was proposed to be within the wetland area. That's been totally relocated out of the wetland area. We were holding on the redesign of all of the grading and stormwater management detail because it's very intensive. As we've been working through the planning board, that's what you all have been waiting on. So that's what I've submitted tonight. Now, this is the full set of all of the redesign detail for the revised layout. Revised stormwater management package has been submitted to Drew, and as part of that, this should then now allow you to commence the peer review that we had discussed previously. So with that, if you'd like, I can just, very quickly just hit on the highlights, and then if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Drew, I think probably just go to sheet 6.0. That's probably really just for what I'm going to hit on. I think that'll give you the highlights. That's the mitigation plan. It's the colored plan.
Okay.
It's probably about 3/4 of the way down the set.
Takes a minute for the plan.
Yeah.
Let me just download here.
Ladies, we have to share this one because it's not working. There's definitely not.
There you go, right there.
That, which plan was that, C2?
6.0.
Yeah, 6.0. That's the master mitigation plan.
Yep.
Should look somewhat familiar to you.
Is that 6?
It's the one that I've kind of, referred to in most of the presentations. So just, again, very quickly, and again, then happy to answer any questions that you have. But so we've revised the layout. I'm just kind of pointing at the overhead screen up here. We have the 12 units now. They've been pulled back from Quiniquisette with about a 65-foot, and I'll point over here if that's easier, with about a 65-foot setback off of Quiniquisette based on dialogue with the planning board. We have then, this is the Village Green area, which if you recall, it was previously in here. It's been pulled entirely out of the BVW, and we are now down to impacts of 2,269 square feet of BVW and 4,247 square feet of IVW, and that's on this plan here. You see in the blue cyan color, that's the impacts of the BVW, and then there's a little bit of impact here, and then impact over here of the IVW. Of that, and I'll try to point to both overheads, but of this, along Quiniquisette, the impact that we have right there, which is this area right there, that's 218 square feet of impact. The only reason we have that is actually to help pick up and accommodate that existing runoff that's coming off of Quiniquisette Ave, and it goes right into the wetland. And with all this redesign, we've really tried to minimize all those impacts and so forth. But the way that shoulder and with that wetland, if you look at it, actually goes up into the shoulder of Quiniquisette, into the town layout. So we've just created a little bit of a diversion so that we can pick that runoff up and put it through that forebay, and then it'll go on to the wetland after that. That way, it allows us to do some pre-treatment. We've sized this 4-bay, which is identified as 4-bay 1. We've sized it so that it accommodates what's necessary per DEP stormwater guidelines for water quality treatment, and then there's some additional volume in there that allows us to treat some of the runoff from Quiniquisette. We could make it larger and treat more off of Quiniquisette, but we've been going between, the planning board wanted us to keep the buffer as intact along Quiniquisette as much as possible, so we were trying to keep that footprint of that 4-bay at a minimum, if you will. So there's still some potential flex going on there. And then with the redesign, we have a second 4-bay that is located in this area here, which is right there. And again, that handles all of the pre-treatment area for the southern half of the project. So again, water quality treatment through those. We also have additional very small 4-bays at the backs of the lots that also provide water quality treatment. And then from there, it then releases after being treated into the wetland system. That's, currently the bog system here, and then this wetland system here as well. We are still proposing to mitigate the bog. So it's bog number 1 and bog number 2, which are currently active cranberry bogs. We're proposing to restore those into natural wetland systems. Based on the wetland impact that we have and the buffer impact that we have, and in coordination and review with Drew, we have calculated that we have 1.28 acres of mitigation required. With the mitigation that we're providing in these 2 bogs, it actually provides 2.03 acres of wetland mitigation. On top of that, we are restoring about 5,000 square feet of upland buffer, which is that's the actual gravel road that exists along the bog's edge. So that's going to all be restored. That's within the 50-foot buffer. And then also, as part of that project, restoration, that also restores about 93,000 square feet of inner riparian zone, which, again, is just a great benefit. So that's the highlights. Obviously, there's a lot to digest here. I know that the peer reviewer that you're going to be hiring, LEC, I believe it is, will need to do their review, and then we'll get their comments, and then we'll have further dialogue and discussion, and I'll answer questions and so forth. So with that, that's about what I was planning on presenting tonight. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot there. Any quick questions that commissioners would like to ask?
Can I ask?
Sure.
Yeah.
I just, I know this is something we've talked about, but, so this area where there is that wetland now, where there is a lot of pooling of water on Quiniquisette, right where the driveway kind of is now?
Oh, up in here?
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't see there being any more run, because it's so, like, when there's a storm and you're driving down there, it's like a lake, and I'm just wondering.
Yeah,
What do you-
that'll get addressed. We had discussed that with DPW during the, site plan review. We're going to be adding a Cape Cod berm edge treatment along the road, which will help channel runoff. The driveway location that's there is going to be removed. This road actually shifts over, and then there's that shoulder area. If you remember when we were walking out there before, the shoulder area right off of the edge of the road, you can just see, if you walk on it, you can just feel the sediment and so forth that's all in there. So that'll get cleaned up, et cetera, and that'll address the drainage that's going on there. So, and that's, we'll definitely work with DPW on that as well to make sure that everything ends up the way that it should.
Yeah, it's a tricky road when it's a storm.
Yeah.
I drive it every day, so, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else?
I haven't had a chance to really look
Yeah,
at it.
I haven't
Yeah,
either. So.
no, it's,
Just a general question I would have. The bog restoration itself.
Yep.
Are the protocols for how that's going to be played out, are those all included in this package?
that's not in this package. That'll come, so this is all about, the development of the project. We get to the point where hopefully you guys, and this is what we had talked about before, we get to the point where the commission says, okay, we can approve this project. We will then work on the actual restoration plans, and that's what Drew and I had talked about. So there'd be, part of the conditions would be the detailed restoration plans, would be some type of bond security for the restoration of the bogs, et cetera. Because we just don't want to go through all that
All right, so,
detailed restoration design until we know that we're there. Right?
that makes sense.
Yep.
That's intentional,
Yeah.
just to make you dance a little
Yes,
bit, you
right.
know?
I have been dancing.
Any other
So,
questions?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you a question? I'm just assuming that because no one has had an opportunity to go through this in depth and really make an intelligent decision, is it the intention that we're going to go for a continuance? Or would you prefer,
Yeah,
you
we
think so,
would
Drew?
certainly be continued tonight.
Yeah.
We'll see how the peer review process
Right.
plays out with the commission, and then we would, if that is successful, we
okay.
would
Yeah.
wait for that.
There's just so much.
Yeah, I mean,
There's no deliberation or voting
Yeah.
on this at this
I-
point.
All right, yeah, I
I'd
agree.
anticipate there's at least one more hearing. I would think it's probably another couple of hearings, is my guess.
Do we have don't we have a ceiling on how many hearings? Is it three?
Continuances.
Oh,
It's-
continuing.
It's continuances. Yes, and it does mention that the commission shouldn't grant more than 3 hearings. It's your discretion, and I think given the circumstances of this particular project, it kind of warrants,
It warrants an exception.
yes, in my opinion, it does.
There's a lot
Doesn't that
here.
make you excited?
Yes.
Okay,
But yeah, no, we want to make sure, address all of the information fully, absolutely, so.
I think, given that if LEC is going to review this, November 2nd is too quick
Yeah.
of a turnaround for them to review it, prepare something, get it back to us, and for us to be able to review it. Would it make sense to push it further out in November?
did you
Well,
have?
my suggestion was to continue it to November 2nd. I've already forwarded everything on to LEC. Give them an opportunity to come back to us and let us know just how long it's going to take them to do the peer review. And if they come back and say November 2nd's fine, then we're good to go, or we can wait to hear back from LEC, and then when it comes to November 2nd, continue it to the next day. I think there should be an allowance to allow November 2nd to
Yeah,
at least
that
be a
seems kinda
candidate
quick.
date
Right.
and see what LEC says.
I'm just curious if there would be time for us to review what LEC prepares.
Right.
Yeah.
Because even if they prepared it and got it, there's little chance that it would be prepared by next week, and then that would only be a week for us to look at it.
Yeah. No, it's a good
I
point.
don't disagree too, because it would be nice to have a chance for me to review it as well and have some
Yeah.
dialogue and.
Kind of be in the
I mean,
same
I
boat we're in
don't
right
have
now.
Right.
myself,
You wanna push it out
going to
a
the
month then?
16th,
Yeah.
I think,
think
gives
so.
everybody a little bit of breathing room, and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if that's
Is that our next
okay
one,
with
16th?
everybody.
16th, yep.
That make more sense?
That
Yeah.
makes better sense.
Yeah.
Careful, that's not push it back.
I mean, Drew, but when LEC's review does come in, you'll forward that right along as soon as you
Oh,
have
as soon as
that,
it comes out, I'm not going to wait
obviously,
for the hearing, yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, as soon as they come out with it, I'll forward it on to everybody.
Great.
Yep.
Yep.
It'd be helpful, Drew and Dan, could you guys print, like, a set of these plans off in like 11 by 17 format size?
I can print out whatever you.
Yeah,
want
whatever
if
you need.
want.
Then feel
Yeah.
like each of us can have a set of plans that we can look at. 'Cause
Yep.
These are pretty big.
Yeah,
on
I
the
only
LE.
requested the larger ones just because the smaller ones, it's so much detail, it's kind of hard to read.
Yeah.
That's why, I can request more copies of the large ones if you want, or if you prefer 11 by 17, it's just, there's so many details, it might be a little
Yeah,
constricted
too-
on 11
too
by
tight,
17. But I can
Yeah,
certainly
you
furnish
guys
more
tell me what you
large
want, and
plans.
we'll get them printed.
I only requested 4 for the purposes of tonight's hearing, because we're not
right,
really
right.
deliberating, so, but I can
I
certainly.
might not have been able to carry in 10.
Couple trips to
Watch
the
your
car.
back.
Yeah, but that's fine, whatever size you're comfortable with is what Matt will provide, so.
Okay.
How many more full-size do you think you want? I mean, I've given you
Well, there's
4. If I give,
six commissioners total, so
so another
2,
2. Do you want one for
I'm-
your office? So another 3, maybe?
3, yeah,
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
that would be fine.
Is there a question from those in attendance here? Drew, any other comments before I?
Only, because I can't recall back, I know you had, made a decision to have this peer review, but I literally recommended that you just take another vote to commence the peer review, just for the record.
Yeah.
even though I know we've engaged with them already, but just to be sure. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then. So I would accept a motion to commence the peer review with LEC Environmental, if there is a motion.
I'll make a
for that.
motion.
Thank you, Alex. Second, Steve?
Second? Sorry.
Any questions or third? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Alex?
And two, so we're going to do two votes, one for the continuance and one for the LEC, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do the LEC one.
LEC.
That's the one that's on the table. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes,
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy?
yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that motion carries. The review will begin in earnest.
Okay.
And now I do accept a motion for a continuance to November 16th at, what time do we have?
That would be 6:06.
6:06.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. 11:16. Motion made and seconded for the continuance. Any discussion? None? Call for a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes,
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy?
yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll see you on the 16th.
Isn't this fun?
Thanks, Matt.
Yes, it is. I enjoy seeing you.
Before you go, those copies for...
Yeah, what should we do with
when,
these?
When would those be available for the people who want them?
I will get them to you, if not tomorrow, Monday. I'll get them to Drew.
Okay, so I'm going to keep this one here. Who
That
who
keep
needs
that
one?
one.
Is that
Yeah,
okay?
hold on to those. Yeah, that's great.
All right.
If, it's either
So
tomorrow or
you
Monday.
need one, right?
Yeah, but I'll.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to see you tomorrow. Actually, if I can
Actually,
get
yeah,
them,
you'll see
if I can
me,
get them printed before that,
If that's, if that works out, that's great. Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
Well,
Sooner
I'll
the
I'll
better.
grab mine in,
If it
another
doesn't
10
pass,
days.
I can use
so.
it on
Okay.
Thanksgiving at the-
Steve's got a plotter at home, don't you?
Yeah. I used to have one.
Thank you all. Have a good
All
night.
right,
Matt.
Thank you.
take care, Matt.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
All right, let me just pick this up.
Okay. What was that date again, Drew? Continuous.
It was
16.
16th at 6:06.
Okay, we all set? Now calling the 6:06 hearing for 16 Summer Sea Road, Nancy E. Gendron. Proposed floating pier modification, Representative Cape and Islands Engineering. This is continued from September 21st. It is a RDA. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
For the record.
My name is Doug Schneider with Cape and Islands Engineering, filling in for Raul for this project at 16 Summer Sea Road on Aquay Bay. There is an existing licensed pier that extends from the upland out into the bay, which you see photos of there on the screen. There currently exists a 3-float T configuration at the end of the pier that the applicant is proposing to reconfigure and adjust the location, reducing it from the 3 floats that you see in the T configuration there on the plan to 2 floats in a straight line and shifted slightly north to provide a little better access between the 2 piers that are located on the north and south. The floats are currently supported by simple pipe piles that'll be removed and replaced. And it'll reduce the overall footprint of the floats from around 400 square feet down to just at 200 square feet. The pier itself remains exactly as it is, other than a little tiny shift on the way the ramp is coming off the end of the pier. So we're looking for a negative determination for this to allow to proceed forward.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to commissioners first for questions.
I didn't get a chance to check back on the depth, but there's no change in that, is there? Doesn't appear so.
No,
Everything is pretty much in the same.
Everything's the same out there, it's just a slight couple of foot shift north on the, where the floats are, same depth on everything.
So how come he wants to do this? I'm just curious. What's the purpose?
They just want to reconfigure the floats to make it easier to come and go. That's how they're.
Navigating?
To navigate into the space. And part of it has to do with the floats that are on the north and south to balance the distance off a little better between their neighbors, to
Okay.
make it easier for everybody.
Can't we all just get along on the same pier?
Any other questions?
No?
How deep is the water right there? I'm having trouble understanding.
It is about a foot below mean low water at the end of the float. Is that what I'm seeing on the screen up there? Yeah, the elevations that you see are the depths below mean low water.
16, 17?
About 0.5 to 1 at the end of the float. And it varies as you go across there.
What size boat do they have? Like, what kind of boat do they have? I feel like this is,
It's just a small
yeah.
motorboat.
Aaron?
I can't remember, I know we went out to this place. Was it the decking? Are they proposing the kind where the light gets through, you know what it's called, where the, it
Oh,
lets
the,
50% more?
sunlight
Yeah,
penetration?
the sunlight comes through.
I think this is only limited to the floats,
Oh, okay.
so it's not,
So
they're
it's
not
nothing
doing
to do with
anything with
that.
the
Okay,
fixed pier.
cool.
Yeah.
Then I have no other questions.
1.7.
Having said that I did take a look when we were out there underneath the fixed pier, and it looks like the vegetation is growing at the same height under the pier, even though it's 3/4 inch spacing,
So it's
which is,
not
yeah,
doing worse
it's good to
for-
see. I
Yeah.
mean, not that I recommend that kind of spacing for any dock, but it's good to see that at least it's not interfering with the
So
vegetation.
you actually went out and went under?
I peered underneath as we were making our way out from
You're
the
the
side yard.
best.
We shoved him underneath.
Yeah, I know. No, I would say it's an interesting piece of property, but I must admit, I did not go into the water and peek underneath.
No, it was from the side yard. It wasn't like I strapped on waders and got into the water.
No, I'm sure. I'm impressed.
Where the water is as shallow as it is there a provision to keep these floats off the bottom? You know, with an unusual low tide of some kind or another?
They do have a, polyethylene base to them. I don't believe there's a specific change in the configuration of how the floats go up and down.
Hello.
Typically, don't we condition chains or something to keep these?
Well, it's Marine Fisheries, oftentimes in their comment letters, does require float stops to prevent grounding at low tide. I think a lot of these floats ground at low tide in this particular cove because it is so incredibly shallow. But that is something the commission can require, to have float stops put on to prevent grounding at low tide.
That's one
It's usually
point-
for impacts to areas that are, prolific shellfish habitat. And even though this area is identified by Marine Fisheries as under the mapped land containing shellfish, based on our own shellfish constable and Department of Natural Resources, this is a dead zone for shellfish. Not saying that to say that float stops aren't necessary, but that's the main reason that Marine Fisheries recommends that condition. So that they don't smother shellfish beds
Right.
when they rest at low tide.
But if we do get water improvement, and I hope we do,
Right.
Right.
that could certainly change. And this is going to be a long-term
Yeah.
proposal, right? I mean, you're not going to be back here in a year or two to change it again.
So certainly hope not.
I would like to see some kind of float stops on that. I mean, there's not much water there.
How many, just a quick question, just in the interest of float stops, how many piles are associated with this new configuration?
It's not very many.
Would you need additional piles just to make float stops actually work?
You would. He's got two at the end, on each end, and one in the middle, it looks like,
Yeah.
just to hold them in place, and they're 2-inch pipe piles,
Oh,
so they're minimal.
oh, they're pipe
Oh, they're-
piles.
Yeah, so he's,
That's right,
so
2-inch.
the stability of those is just to hold the float in place.
Yeah.
If you were to try and hold it up all the time with
I
a
don't know
float
if that
stop,
would
it would be
really work.
difficult without putting in timber pile,
It
bigger
doesn't
timber
sound like a
piles.
float stop would work there.
No,
No.
not with
Not
the
on
number
that, yeah.
of posts right now. You
Only three.
need 4 at least,
Yeah.
just to have them work. And with pipe piles, I don't know how stable they would be in holding up
weight
200
of
square
that.
feet of floats.
Yeah, that's a lot of weight there.
Wind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, how many chances would that float actually hit the bottom, maybe on the
On
low,
extreme
low
low
tide?
tides, yeah, it
Maybe
would
once,
be-
once a month, maybe at the most?
Yeah. I mean, the alternative is to have larger piles and more piles.
Right, which,
Yeah, that's just more
I don't know if it's
disruption.
really worth.
Yeah. Just a thought.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah. Any other questions from commissioners? Let me go out to the public. Any questions from those that are here? None? Drew, any comments that you would like to add before?
Nothing to add other than what you have there.
Yeah.
The Shellfish Constable didn't feel that any mitigation fee was necessary for such a minor change in float footprint, and Harbor Master has no issues with navigation. There's still separation from, it's like 26.4 feet from the dock to the south, and 18.6 feet. So it actually looks, it's moving further away from one of the docks, but getting a little bit closer to the other one, but still, the riparian setback to neighboring docks based on Chapter 91 standards is 25 feet, so it still exceeds
Yeah.
where it's getting closer to the neighboring dock, 26.4. And it was already within 25 of the previous, of the other docks.
Yeah. Okay. If there are no other questions or comments, I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion for a negative determination for 16 Summit Sea Road, Nancy E. Gendron, for a proposed floating pier modification.
Thank you, Steve.
do we need to include anything from the Board of Health notes? In that motion?
Oh, that's in case machinery goes across the property, but this is all going to be done
All
by
by,
water.
all by water, okay.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Thank you, Alex. Motion made and seconded. Up for discussion amongst commissioners. Nothing?
Good?
We're good? A call for a vote then. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes, sir.
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there much evidence of that being on the ground, the old dock?
What's that?
The old dock, did that show a lot of evidence of?
Oh, you mean the floats?
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't really tell when we were out there. I mean, it's definitely shallow. We went out there at high tide, and it still seemed like it was just barely over a foot of depth before you hit the muck. Yeah. But I have seen in that area, I mean, this is a pretty congested area of docks. Most of them during the low tides are grounded.
Yeah.
Almost every float in Aquay Bay is grounded at low tide.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of water there. Okay. Now calling the 6:09 hearing for 339 Monomoskoye Road, William P. and Roxanne M. Simons. Proposed raise and replace existing single-family dwelling and garage. Representative is BSS Design. This hearing is continued from August 24th and September 21st. It's a notice of intent, DEP file number 433248. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Tom Bunker with BSS Design and Aaron Jugarale of the Armouthport Design Group. We made some changes to this plan, which we think will be acceptable to you, and basically we made the house a little bit smaller. We just took 2 feet out of it, which removed the water side part of the house 2 feet away from the ocean, the little river. Doubled the mitigation planting, put in the 2-to-1 mitigation planting. The Kwanzan cherry tree was saved. Added winterberry to the hedge on the south property line. And we revised the septic system profile so that any disturbance would be higher out of and higher above the groundwater, and we changed the nitrogen loading calculations to reflect that one of the bedrooms, the one bedroom in the barn there, boathouse, will not be treated, but it still has a concentration of 6.5 parts per million. So, I mean, that's basically it. I don't know if you want to, talk about the planting or the.
Yes, we recalculated, obviously recalculated, we moved the house and took a little bit out of the house, reduced the house and pulled it back from Little River, as Tom mentioned, recalculated the mitigation and used the factor of 2 as the minimum. Yeah, it was all in the 50 to 100, so the factor was 2, and expanded that mitigation to reflect that. And once again, I will point out that part of that, what you see of the native plants, there was some existing mitigation there that's being infilled. That was not part of the calculation. So it's, the proposed mitigation is, the new mitigation is just over 1,000 square feet. And as Tom mentioned, we're going to have a tree spade move the Kwanzan cherry, prune it up and move it a little, so it clears the garage and is replanted. I did send through some pictures, I don't know if they're available in there, of what all these trees do look like. There's some of them are really ornamental landscape plants that have overgrown a little bit. There's a Hinoki cypress. I numbered them on my plan. I don't know if that.
I don't have the photo, sorry, Andrew.
Oh, all right. So you don't have them, okay. But the trees that are being removed, there's the one really beautiful oak tree, which is really a shame that it has to come down. But the other trees are aside from the Norway spruce that we discussed last week, there's a very large arborvitae, and what's labeled by where the shed is, it's coming out, is a 12-inch pitch pine that is in very poor condition, and it's heavily infested with English ivy as well. The number 7 is a pine tree that's also not in great condition. What I would call a Dr. Seuss tree, very tall and skinny with a little tassel on the top for the most part. And the spruce is also very, very poor condition. And then coming around to the east side of the house, tree number 2 is an ornamental dwarf Hinoki cypress. It's been there a long time, so it's a good size stem on it of 6 inches, but it's an ornamental plant. And then there's an 8-inch Scotch pine adjacent to it that is in very poor condition, being that it's not a native tree and it's also in a shaded area between the 2 buildings. So not in good condition there. And I guess that's about all I want to say on that.
I could give a little more detail on the septic system, and when we were doing this, I want to make clear that the pump chamber is in already, and so we're not going to disturb that. And that, most likely is in the groundwater, but it would probably do more disturbance if we were to dig it up or just to raise it. But I moved the septic tank that has the treatment in it further inland, because before we had it tucked down where there's like elevation 8 contour. I moved it inland, so it's up under where there's an elevation 9 contour, so that we could raise it to be above the groundwater. And also on that profile there, you see we have the fan, the vent for the treatment system is going up on there would have to be a platform or something for the generator and the vent to be above the flood zone design elevation.
I think you need to scroll that up to see that
Yeah, scroll a little bit the other way.
the other way.
Yeah, it's on there where section,
Yeah.
on the sort of the left, middle left of there is that's the blower, but it's also on a little pedestal that would have
Generator.
the generator. The AC units are on the north side of the house, also on pedestals to be above the base flood elevation. So actually that got easier to do, some of the piping got easier to do by moving that treatment tank further inland, and made some other parts of that easier to do there. So that is, I can't remember the number offhand, but it's above, by more than a foot above the groundwater elevation. And that the existing condition, the existing nitrogen loading is like 9.4 in the present condition with the existing house and existing driveway, and it goes down to 6.5 with the new house and the advanced treatment of the septic. So that's what we've done. Take any of your questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to commissioners first for questions or comments, if there are any.
Well, go with a cherry tree.
Sandy?
I know it's not a native tree, but it is a beautiful tree. And do you really think you can successfully move that tree?
Yes, with a big tree spade. It'll be costly, but it will be done. Yeah. Yep.
I just
Any-
wondered, is there any plan possible wherein those 3 spruce trees can stay? Because those are huge trees, and I just have a really hard time seeing them gone, because the environment under those trees will be completely changed forever. You know, it's not just the tree, it's the things that,
The rhododendrons underneath that.
no, the critters and stuff that live in and land in the trees, you know, I'm having a hard time knocking down trees that are that old and obviously
Yeah, The
established.
concern is safety on it.
Sure.
And because they're so large, they're so out in the open, that they're very much a blowover hazard. And I actually was talking to an arborist about an hour and a half ago, and I was asking him if we need to look at these, if he'd be available to do that. And he pointed out to me that they're also a very high lightning hazard, which I hadn't thought of. But,
Well, they've weathered a few storms in their lifetime so far.
oh, yeah, for
So,
sure, for sure.
I mean,
But, yeah.
why are we thinking they're gonna fall down?
Yeah, well, they
Do
just
we
keep
wanna
getting
have an
big.
arborist
And,
look at 'em?
yeah,
Is that
I mean, if, at the outset of this, you know, I walked with Drew out there, and he had concerns of it. So from the get-go, I believed that the Conservation Commission would want them to go, so that's why I initially had them removed from the plan. And I can, if necessary, we can have an arborist go out and determine or give his, he wouldn't be able to tell you that it's going to blow over tomorrow, but give some opinion on that, and also, maybe inspect it for health. I didn't honestly look at them closely to see if they were unhealthy. I assumed that they are healthy. So I assumed they were coming out, so I didn't pay that much attention to their health. But certainly there's some biomass there. But, down below them, they're a tree trunk to a certain point, and then when they get over the house, of course, they have the broader crown. So what we're proposing is going to give good wildlife cover down low. The trees are going to grow, they're eastern red cedars, so that they are going to grow to be a larger tree. There's going to be a lot of cover there. There's going to be a lot of juniper berries on there, so a good food source in there. So I think based on the risk of them coming over or falling over in a hurricane or lightning, if they're posing a risk, I would think that this would be a fairly good alternative to be able to put in that thick growth of eastern red cedar. Again, small animal cover as well as larger animal cover and food source. But that's up to you guys.
So I just have a question. The 9 cedars are to replace trees taken out?
There's the 3 spruce trees with the red X's there.
Within the 100-foot to the salt marsh, but the rest of the property is flood
Oh, there's
zone.
another tree being proposed, I forgot to mention that, in the mitigation, I added a red maple tree into the mitigation down in the, near the water.
But the whole property is in the flood zone, correct?
Yes.
Back half
No, all-
is flood zone X.
The half.
You can
Whole
see the
house
dark
is.
dashed line here, right here. Flood shaded X from here out, but all the proposed work is in the flood zone. But part of the property is outside the flood zone.
Okay, but all of the trees that are being removed that we're looking at are within the flood zone?
Correct.
And then the mitigation for them is not the same amount of trees being taken out, and it's not as close to the resource area as it could be cited. Typically, any sort of mitigation plantings are closer to the resource area. We have them as close to the resource area, not just a, like, hedge row between the
the-
neighbor.
Well, the trees, they are closer than the trees coming out.
The mitigation is closer, but these are replacement trees, which are just going in the same place. Right?
Yeah, well, yeah. Aside from the 3 spruce, they're in the 50, they're outside of the 100. They're in the flood zone, but they're outside of the 100.
Right.
These mainly replacement trees to make up for the spruce. coming
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what we typically do for that, if there are mitigation trees being replaced back. Do we typically have them closer to the resource area, or do we just replace them about where they are?
They're
It can
close.
be both, really. I mean, I've seen applications where if trees are taken out because they're within the proposed, area of work limit, and they're replaced in kind, if it's a non-native species, replaced with native species like you see here. And the mitigation is typically for the occupied areas of square footage of structure. That's triggered for mitigation, and mitigation goes as close to the resource area as possible. So it could be either or, really.
Oh, I
But
see
that's
what you're
generally how I've seen it broken up, is if you've got trees,
For replacement versus
Yeah.
trees for mitigation?
right.
saying. And those cedar trees, they're not counted in the square footage. Those are just for replacement of the trees that are being removed.
3-to-1 replacement.
Well, no, there's other trees on the site,
Oh.
so, yeah.
Andrew, what size are the cedar trees going in?
They're, where are they? They're 7 to 8 feet.
Okay.
Anything else?
What's the deal with the lawn,
I'm sorry?
the lawn area?
What about the lawn area?
Am I looking at the right one, correct?
Oh, that's,
Yeah, what's
that's
the
an nitrogen
question, Ryan?
calculation.
So, is it, what changes,
The lawn is getting smaller because of, well, partly because of the mitigation up by the water,
okay?
and obviously partly because the house is bigger.
House getting smaller?
House is bigger.
Oh, the house, than the existing house?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the proposed house just got smaller, but the proposed house is larger than the existing house. There's less lawn because the new house is larger than the existing house, and there's 1,000 square feet of mitigation that replaces lawn.
Is that cool?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
I'm wondering if it's even something we should be concerned about.
There's no new lawn.
Yeah, so
There's nothing-
part of my recommendation, I mean, obviously, you're gonna, if it's approved, you're gonna see a significant reduction of lawn compared to what's out there today, because some of it's gonna be occupied by the mitigation you see on the plan,
Right.
which is currently lawn. And then my recommendation is, because all of this lawn area, a good chunk of it around the house, again, if this is approved and the construction commences, this entire lawn area is going to get disturbed.
Yeah.
It looks like a high-maintenance lawn to me. I don't see any
Yeah.
clover. So I'm, as you know, in my observation of the lawn, it looks like something that's, requires a lot of maintenance to
Yeah, yeah,
maintain.
yeah.
So
It looks different.
any
than-
restored areas of lawn would have to adhere to our lawn standards, which would mean this would be a rye fescue lawn that would not require a lot of irrigation and fertilizer, and therefore be a lot less impactful than the current lawn.
That is right on the face of the plan as well.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have the old one, so I'm going largely on your recommendations and wondering if you've given it the look that you should, and if there are conditions that need to be, if we,
Well, that was, yeah, in my comments, those are some of the conditions that I recommend.
Okay.
Is, if any areas of lawn that are disturbed, which is going to be pretty much all of it
All of it.
around the house, and because all that area right up to the flood zone is jurisdictional, any lawn that's replaced in that entire area should be a rye fescue mix. And documentation to that, and I also recommend a lawn maintenance plan be submitted, which is allowable, suggested under Regulation 31, which is nitrogen loading and lawn standards. So on top of just the lawn being compliant with Regulation 31, there would also be a lawn maintenance plan that would need to be submitted and reviewed by staff.
so it goes
Because it's a large area of lawn.
big,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, good, if you've addressed that to your satisfaction, then.
Well, it's all in my comments that you have there.
No, I saw some, but I didn't have the existing, the old one that we had
Oh,
back in
okay.
August.
Sure.
So I'm just going on my memory on that, which is always a squeegee thing to rely on. But that's very helpful too, so.
Okay, I have a few questions I would like to ask. So the footprint of the house is now at 5680? It's been reduced from 5739 to 5680, is that correct?
That's all structures on the property.
Right.
That I'm using, yes.
So when all is said and done, we would have 5,680 square feet of development.
Yes.
Okay. And what's legally permitted there now is 4,274 square feet of development.
Yes.
So you're asking for an increase of 1,406 square feet.
Correct.
Well, how does this square off with Regulation 25C7? Because any of the new footprint has to have a setback here inside a resource area.
You
I'm
left
just- I'm not getting it.
25C7. What does 25C7 say?
25(7)C is the clause for setbacks. And under C, setback requirements, it says setbacks shall be maintained in areas contiguous to coastal beaches, coastal wetlands, which is what land subject to coastal flow is, coastal wetlands, coastal cliffs, banks, rocky shores, existing man-made shorelines, and apply to the following categories of activities and alterations. The second category is residential building and garages.
Right.
So my question is, if we have 1,406 new square feet of development, where's the setback?
The new structure is further, if you're talking about setback from resource areas, the new structure is further from the resource area than the existing structure.
You're in a resource area. Chapter 172-2
Well,
lists land
then
subject
it's
to
not getting any
coastal.
closer. If it's already in the resource
Right,
area, it's
you're
not
in
getting
it.
closer, but the resource areas that can be moved away from, we have.
So Paul, so if you're saying, just going back to square, so if we take the square foot area that's within the 100-foot buffer? Is that what you're talking about, or
I'm
you're
not
just
talking about a
talking?
buffer. They're inland. Drew
Yeah, the
just
whole-
pointed-
the whole
Drew
thing.
pointed it out on the map.
Right.
All of the development is taking place in land
the
subject to
A zone.
coastal flow.
Right.
That's a resource area. So they're asking to develop an additional 1,406 square feet over and beyond what's already legally permitted for this lot. So I'm asking, where's the setback? Because Regulation 25 calls for it. They're inside a resource area.
This is section 7, Paul?
Yes,
Critical erosion areas?
no, setbacks.
It says
Critical
setbacks.
erosion area is also part of 7,
Right.
but under letter C, A, B, C, I'm down on
Right.
C, setback requirements. And then over on the next page, it talks about these requirements. And it specifically refers to residential building and garages. So I'm at a loss to understand how we can allow an additional 1,406 square feet of development
I have a question, though.
inside the resource area.
I have a question regarding that section.
Yep.
So section 7 says setbacks / critical erosion areas, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you've got a table on the next page under section C, setback requirements, setbacks in critical erosion areas,
Right,
correct?
yes.
Okay. So these are not two different sections, they're one and the same. Setbacks in critical erosion areas. Is this a critical erosion area?
No, it's not,
So then, how does that setback apply?
because the setback is before you come to the
It's
table.
one section, though, it's all one category.
We've
I
even,
think you're misinterpreting section 7. It's not setbacks and critical erosion areas, it's setbacks in critical erosion areas. So if this isn't a critical erosion area, then there are no setback requirements. I think critical erosion areas are areas that are eroding coastal banks, like the ones you see out on the Sound, the ones that supply sediment to downdrift coastal areas. Those are critical erosion areas. This is not. We can try to get clarification if you want, Paul, but I think
Yeah.
that is one and the same.
well, it is a resource area.
I'm not arguing that.
Okay, so
I'm
let
just saying
me,
you're citing a setback.
I am citing a
You're citing a
setback.
setback, but it's associated with critical erosion areas. It's not two separate topics. Section 7 is both. If this isn't a critical erosion area, there are no setback requirements, like you just read.
Right, well, I know we're presently working on 25 to clear up some of the language that's in here.
Right.
We actually talked about taking that section and rewording it. But the fact of the matter is, that's the regulation that we're working with. And it is in a resource area. So let me go one step further. If there's an additional 1,406 square feet of development, And that doesn't include the hardscaping for the driveway and all the pavers that go around the building. There's at least another 300 square feet of development there. The mitigation that's being proposed isn't 2 to 1. The mitigation, 2 to 1, should be 2,812 square feet, and they're proposing 1,011 square feet. So unless there's a waiver being asked to reduce the mitigation, how do we approve this?
Just to the, within the 100 feet, right?
I mean, they have the grass, right? They have the area
It-
that can be filled in. If they were to fill in the 50-foot to the salt marsh with mitigation plantings, and for that to be a 50-foot buffer, about, I mean, roughly just looking at it and eyeing it, close to that, with a path and with their vista pruning and with corridor and with their super low mitigation plantings that'll never grow over a foot tall, we could maybe get to that, right? Maybe.
Maybe.
Well, the mitigation is calculated based on the increase in coverage in the 50 to 100-foot zone, not the entire flood zone.
But the flood zone is a resource area. You're in a resource area. I'm not talking about a buffer. You're in a resource area. So my question is, the mitigation minimum is 2 to 1. I don't see it. I'm not seeing.
I've got a
Sure.
question, and I don't mean to be confrontational. I've worked on over 50 houses in New Seabury. Many of them have been in flood zones. I don't think I've ever been asked to do mitigation, any mitigation for something just in a flood zone. Is this new? Is this something that nobody's paid attention to? I don't understand.
Well, all I'm doing is I'm looking at Chapter 172.2, which is the jurisdiction of the wetlands bylaw that we have. And it specifically says that land subject to coastal flow is a resource area, much like any of the other resource areas that we commonly deal with. Let me continue. And because you are in that resource area, just like you would be if you were in a salt marsh or if you were in a vernal pool, it wouldn't matter. It's a resource area. So the mitigation has to be 2 to 1 as a minimum. I don't see it. I don't see the 2 to 1.
My question is, why is this the first time this has been applied? This has never been applied before, and I don't understand why it wasn't, either why it wasn't applied before, or why is it being applied today, when it's, as far as I know, has never been applied before. Am I wrong on
I can try
that?
my best to explain.
Yeah.
I don't agree with you, Paul, to be quite honest. When you read through Regulation 25, it is mostly prefaced on alteration of naturally vegetated areas in the flood zone. When you look at this, if you've been onto this property, and I can go back and show the photos, the majority of it is previously altered. So when you get into a situation like this, where you've got a lot of pre-existing non-conforming conditions, which is a majority of our jurisdiction, let's be honest, there's a lot of pre-existing non-conforming lots in Mashpee within wetlands jurisdiction. A lot of them look like this. Lawn, there's the house, lawn going right up to the resource area with the exception of a couple of scantily vegetated garden beds, right? So when you have an opportunity here, and yes, I'm not arguing it's a lot of expansion, but where is it expanding into? Previously altered areas, correct? Does anyone see any expansion into a naturally vegetated area here as a result of the house expansion? Are we getting into?
Naturally define that.
Meaning native material, oak pine forest, native undergrowth, naturally vegetated area.
I mean, it's creating impervious surface in
Correct.
an area that is in a flood zone. And
Yeah,
that's
I'm not
our
arguing
reason.
that,
Right.
but when you look at the regulations and you see how it constantly makes references to naturally vegetated areas, that's not the condition here. But the main emphasis of my point is that if you're gonna be focused on setbacks, and I don't agree that this setback section is applicable here, because this is not a critical erosion area, so I don't think Section 7 applies at all. the way I'm reading it, and the way I've been interpreting it for years. So when you've got a condition like this, and let's just set aside regulatory language for a second, let's look at the existing condition of the lot. Look at that photo in the middle. Look at all that lawn. That is being proposed to be replaced with native mitigation to reduce the lawn. The entire lawn is proposed to be replaced by a more compliant lawn. You're taking a lot of input into water quality right now out of the picture. Is that worth the exchange and the expansion of structure? That's really what you need to look at, in my opinion. I'm not forcing you to decide one way or another. I'm just trying to give you my perspective on it, which is when you've got a previously altered condition lot like this that is extremely non-conforming and pre-existing, and you have an opportunity to create a buffer zone where there isn't one, that should be the primary focus. Because honestly, what is the impact of all of this additional square footage? Some of it is impervious, some of it is not. When you get a coastal storm surge coming in, is all of this impervious surface really going to make that much difference when it comes to a coastal storm surge? Is it? No. I don't think so. Is it going to exacerbate local flooding? Well, I don't see any raise in grade on this plan, so no. I think the answer to that is no also. Is it going to provide additional habitat, native habitat over a high maintenance lawn? Yes. And in my opinion, that's what you should be looking at. Otherwise, according to Paul, you can't do anything on land subject to coastal storm flow. Nothing, because it's a resource area. It has standards. You should pay attention to those standards, but you should also look at what's a net environmental benefit when something's being proposed over leaving it as is through a denial. So
Can I ask you a question though? When you say naturally vegetated, like what really is natural here anymore? You know, it's all been done, it's all been lawned
Correct.
over like this. So what really are we talking? We can't talk about what's encroaching on natural vegetation because it's all gone, right?
Right, exactly.
So I guess you know what my struggle with this project is the trees that will be gone.
Okay.
There's
not- yeah,
more
I'm
to
not,
a tree than just.
I don't argue that. I mean,
Yeah.
you could certainly require an arborist to take a look at the
Yeah.
trees. If the trees aren't going to be interfered with by construction, they should be looked at by an arborist, even if they're not native. But in the grand scheme of things,
Sure.
here, what's better? Leaving this as is, or having something where you're getting rid of a non-compliant lawn, and you're putting in a buffer zone where none exists? Didn't we
Right.
just expand the buffer zone by 50 feet because of the lack of naturally vegetated buffer strips around town?
Right.
Well,
But what about
right,
the
but-
lawn, what about, that's one of the things that I was trying to get to, and I think you got to it much better, which we'll talk about later, but you always seem to phrase it better. What would be the appropriate then, question, advice, or condition that the lawn can address to go to Paul's concerns about not meeting the 2-to-1 ratio and what they've proposed? It just did not look right to me, but I wasn't sure why, and I'm wondering if you just hit the nail on the head.
I can only say about the 2-to-1 ratio is that, it's based on square footage of alteration,
Right.
right? Within the 50 to 100, right? Because you have a higher ratio of mitigation the closer you get to the 0 foot. So you've got 2-to-1 in all areas within the 50 to 100. Has that been calculated out? Has that been?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Well, do what you want. I just,
So,
That's
our
just
naturally
see this as an opportunity
vegetated buffer
potentially lost.
strips, our buffer strips regulations as they're written state that the commission shall presume that any buffer strip of less than 35 feet will have unacceptable effects on the value of the wetland.
right.
Meaning that if there is grass within 35 feet of the wetland, that's unacceptable. To say that in another
Well,
way.
I don't know if that's retro, I think that's with undeveloped lots in mind, that if somebody comes in and says, I'm gonna clear up to the 30-foot line, leave a 35-foot wide naturally vegetated buffer, that's unacceptable. Has to be 50 feet at a minimum.
But this is looking at buffer zones, and when it
Right.
talks about buffer zones and buffer strips, it's saying that a buffer strip of 35 feet minimally protects the habitat.
Right, but that's with undeveloped lots, and the whole language there is predicated on an undeveloped lot, not a lot that's being.
Well, I would think that a lot that has a lot of disturbance and is going to have a lot more disturbance and is in an area. This is really challenging.
Well, okay, so this goes back to our discussion question. Okay, that would be, we'll talk about later, but, okay, are we working off Regulation 25, Section C, 2B, C, and D? Does this meet that requirement? Are we working off Chapter
I believe it
172? What, because these two, Chapter 172 and Regulation 25 disagree with each other. So,
Yeah, they don't seem to, John.
yeah, does this meet the requirements of Regulation 25? Because it sounds like, we're gonna have to change one of
I
these.
believe it does, because
regulations.
if you look at the standards for flood zone, right, you pay attention to the performance standards of every resource area, right? That's the key in evaluating whether a project is going to adversely impact those standards, or if it's going to be innocuous, or if it's going to be somewhere in between, right?
Right.
So the facts here are that you've got expansion, and yes, it's substantial expansion. But is it wiping out a grove of native trees? Is it going over existing patio, landscape, and hardscape areas? Therefore, how is it impacting the resource area that's already 100% altered? So when you've got that kind of standard and you're looking at an opportunity to get a buffer zone established, yep, maybe it's not 50 feet wide, but you have an opportunity to get rid of high maintenance lawn and establish a buffer where nothing exists, and you're not adversely impacting the performance standards based on what's being proposed, then what's the issue? Not to say that you can't require additional measures, but what's the issue? I'd like an answer to that question. What is the adverse impact here from what you see in the flood zone?
More and more houses and more footprint in the flood zone.
Okay,
Like,
but
that's
what's
a
the
problem.
impact? But what is the specific impact is my question.
What is the benefit?
The benefit is getting a buffer zone where nothing exists in exchange for.
Strip of about 25 feet, not even, 20 feet
Okay,
of
then
some
increase
plants.
Then you can increase it. I'm just saying there's currently nothing there. Is that better?
Well, there are also large trees that we are losing.
Right,
So, yeah, there's a lot of things.
and they're being replaced.
Yeah,
By one species in a strip to act as a hedge. They're not gonna be functioning as a grove of trees would function. So, there's trade-offs here that we have to weigh. And we have to be comfortable with it. I don't know if, are we gonna come to a consensus tonight? Do we need to have a discussion that's further down on the agenda before we can do this? Possibly.
I don't know.
I think Alex is right in this, and we don't get to the other agenda item, which we all want to understand how we can
Right.
function when we come to a situation like this where we have the conflict.
And that conflict has nothing to do with this.
No.
No.
That's
No,
about the
it just
establishment
gives
of a
us
buffer
an extra
zone
tool
to a
figure out
100-foot
how we
buffer.
deal with it.
Yeah.
Do
It's
you
got
agree
nothing
with
to
that?
do with this.
No, so
Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't think we want to continue just based on
No,
that.
I don't think you
alone.
want to continue on the sake of the applicant, only to come back and just hear more reasons why they're not going to
Exactly.
accept what's
Exactly.
being
So-
presented.
What I'm suggesting is that as the commission should set that piece aside, it's a piece of thing we're all on conflict that we have to deal with. But for tonight, is there a compromise somewhere between Alex's concern that you rightly say, Drew, is it gonna be left in a better situation? Is that gonna improve it? Why are you doing that? Why are we concerned about it? I think as a commission, we need to figure that out. Doesn't appear as though your recommendations as our agent is, that's not gonna be an answer. There's no point in pursuing that. Am I
Okay.
right?
No,
No?
no, I don't agree. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, I just respectfully disagree.
So,
Okay.
our lawn standards state that the area of lawn to be renovated shall not exceed 10% of the area of the lot. That there needs to be a buffer zone, and that it says that the way I've understood it in the past is that it shall be a buffer strip. So it feels like, I mean,
So you think you've got the roadmap there?
I think there needs to be more mitigation plantings here in order for it to work. I don't know what the exact amount is.
I agree with Alex, because I think if we're going to allow, you know, the bigger house, then we should get as much mitigation as we can.
Right.
Well, then, our alternatives are what? How are we gonna leave it better? If we're gonna use that standard, and I like that standard, how are we gonna make this less cumbersome and more effective?
And
do so-
applicable,
and do
and
so-
applicable, like where we can apply it confidently every
Exactly.
time.
Yeah,
Right,
not for the purpose of meeting some, word usage and what comes first and what comes last, but for the point of leaving in this project things better than they found it.
Yeah.
Which we believe it is.
And you believe it is, and I appreciate and respect that. That's what I'm saying, the arcane nuances of rules, regs, bylaws, subsections.
But
is-
to
is
to go back,
getting in our
to
way.
just that, like I understand everybody's point. So I'm saying if you double the mitigation on the water side of the property and eliminate lawn, so you get more mitigation. I understand Andrew's reason on those spruce trees. They are tall, they're on the northeast side of the house, they're gonna be close to the house, they're close to the existing house now. I've seen them come down in storms numerous times. And I understand the loss of a tall tree, but you're getting cedars that provide, feed for animals, that they're a thick native species, they handle the salt water, salt air, they're better tolerant than the spruce trees. So I'm fine with this, cedar trees here. Even if you wanted it, you could add a couple more, get down to the 50-foot buffer, and that would handle that area really well. And if we can, double the mitigation, eliminate lawn, I think that's a good compromise for the added square footage of the house in the storm. And I agree with Drew said, okay, right now, you don't have a flood compliant house. You have a lawn, you don't have mitigation. All of a sudden, now you got a lot of mitigation, you got plantings, you got a flood compliant house, you got an IA septic system. These are all positive things. Yeah, the house is getting bigger, and filling in, a lot of it's outside the 100-foot buffer. I know it's all in the flood zone, but, looks like two-thirds of the building's outside the 100-foot buffer, too. So if we can come to compromise as a commission, say, okay, let's get some more mitigation, maybe a couple more cedars to run down the 50-foot buffer. And, you got everything's going to dry wells from the roof. This is, all positive things. And I agree with Drew said, overall, this is going to be better for this property and better for the water quality in the Little River and the groundwater quality. Yeah, the trade-off is, yes, the house is getting bigger, but yeah, look at all these things that we're getting.
And then what do you do, just finish that off, Steve, because I like what you're saying, because it does what you were saying. What do you do with the lawn?
Well, yeah, okay, let's push the mitigation back, push it back another 25, 30 feet, eliminate some lawn. And that'll make up for what Paul was talking about, the added square footage in the flood zone.
What?
Yeah.
Not all the lawn, what would you like to
So,
get rid of?
I think it's a compromise position for this board and the applicant, and it achieves a lot for both, so.
So I think so too. Anyone who's a better mathematician.
Not me.
If I may,
We have Aaron saying get rid of all of that. You saying get rid of, I like the 30,
So,
40%, maybe. What do you think?
Sounds fine to me.
Okay? We're good? Go ahead, Andrew.
one thing that, a couple of things that I want to mention, but one very big thing that nobody's picked up on here, I don't think anybody's picked up upon. One of the benefits of this house is that it is flood zone compliant. That means that in a flood, water is going to go beneath this house, and it's, except for the garage, and it's going to recede from that. So this is, we right now have a house that's displacing floodwater. We're going to have a house now that's not displacing floodwater. Another thing that concerns me a lot is, I've been doing this for 23 years. Tom's been doing this a lot longer than I have. We try to do for our clients, and we have a responsibility to our clients to follow the regulations as best we can. And we're going to have a difficulty with our client if arbitrarily somebody's going to decide that all of a sudden we need to have mitigation based on no standard, just we're going to add more mitigation because we think it's a good idea. That's going to be awful hard for us as consultants to somebody to say, oh, we let them do that, but there's nothing, unless there is something.
Well, I think you've heard it already, Andrew. It's the square footage increase of the house. So if you need to tell your client something as justification, that's it.
Yeah, okay.
The figures are, you are increasing 1,406 square feet. 2 to 1 means that you should be proposing 2,812 square feet of mitigation. That's not an arbitrary thing. That's Regulation 12. It's right there.
But that seems to be your interpretation of it and not other.
What's there to interpret? It says a
Yeah,
minimum of 2 to 1.
you've made your point on it many times.
I thought I did.
But it's a new interpretation.
It's a new interpretation. Like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, and Tom's been doing it longer. And that's the first time, this is
Any
the
other
first time that I
questions or
know
comments from
of.
the commissioners? Those in the public, any questions or comments? Any last things that you'd like to say?
I have
No,
idea
I
what
would
we're
only
supposed
say
to do.
that if they're amenable to the changes and they come back and present them, is there anything else that the commission wants to see? Because I think it would just be out of respect for the applicants, prudent to mention that now, because if they come back and they hear a whole new slate of requirements, that's a problem.
Are we
That I'm-
continuing them?
Right.
I was-
Well, yeah, or you could condition these, yeah.
what
I
I was
mean, either way you go, if it is going to be a continuance, then I would respectfully ask that you give
Right.
them everything that you're concerned about now,
Right.
and not come back at the 11th hour with a whole new slate of
Yeah, I have
changes.
no idea what we need to do.
Well, we've been doing that right along.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Force it on with a condition.
Okay.
Just say
So there are no other questions or comments? I would entertain whatever motion. Yeah.
Steve, this one's on you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for 339 Monomoskoye Road, William P. and Roxanne M. Simmons for a close and issue on a notice of intent filing with the conditions of having the mitigation as shown in the plan and to the number that was, the chairman noted, was 2,800 and some odd square feet?
2812.
2812 square footage of mitigation. Plantings, that includes removal of turf lawn within the mitigation area. For whatever lawn is remaining, submission of a lawn maintenance plan as detailed under Regulation 31. And then submission of a signed 3-year mitigation monitoring and maintenance contract with a qualified professional.
Second.
I think, did I cover everything on?
I think you did.
Okay.
Motion by Steve, second by Marjorie.
So, and can I amend that motion?
Sure.
Okay, so that the applicant would submit the revised plan to staff and work with staff on it?
Yeah.
Is that amenable to the members?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
And you'll second that, Marjorie?
I will second that.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Further discussion by the commission?
I want to discuss one part. So in our lawn standards, it states the buffer, it talks about the buffer strip. It talks about, the buffer strip being 50 feet. 50-foot wide buffer strip. Would we as a commission say either 2812 square feet or 50 feet? Which I wasn't actually gonna say whatever's more. I was gonna say whatever's, I don't know. I was gonna say whatever's less, but
Seriously, you can, go ahead and say it.
I don't know, I guess I don't know how to deal with that part of it, because if we can confidently say, based off of our lawn standards, the 50-foot buffer, and/or we can say 2812 square feet.
Where the call is planted, really
There.
clarifies that the initial comment. Go ahead.
Well, the two mitigation areas that are proposed, one's 516 and the other one's 495.
Yeah, it says 1,011
So-
mitigation square feet.
Okay.
Right.
Okay,
Provided.
no, let's just go with the numbers then. That's fine.
Basically, you'd be doubling that.
I don't need to muddy it.
No, I think Steve covered it.
I mean, that, just, Alex, just to point out that, is this section after number 7, under nitrogen loading lawn standards, where it says,
be
it should be
beyond
noted
50
that
feet.
new or expanded
gonna be
lawns are
beyond
not
50
generally
feet.
permitted unless,
And are to be maintained or established? Yeah.
where does it say that part?
B is maintained or established.
Yeah, okay, and actually buffer minimum 50 foot wide.
This will be more than 50 feet, I believe.
Okay. Okay. And I'm only asking because it says, as a preface to A, B, and C, right? It says it should be noted that new or expanded lawns are not generally permitted unless, and then it goes into A, B, and C.
It also talks about, when I was reading it earlier, it was talking about
For continuance again.
new lawns also being like redone lawn areas. Is the way I was reading it.
Where does it say that? Not trying to argue with you, I'm
Yep.
just trying to be on the
Yep.
same page.
The area of lawn to be installed or renovated is, it talks about earlier in section 1.
Okay.
So if it's talking about it being renovated and
Oh,
we're asking
renovated shall
for
not
all of
exceed
it to be renovated.
10% of the area,
Yeah.
that's what you're
Yeah.
citing? Okay.
And if it's talking about all of it to be renovated, because we don't think any of it is the fescue
Right,
that we want,
right.
then it seems to me if the whole thing's gonna be scraped, that at least 50 feet of that needs to be vegetated buffer.
So are you satisfied then with the amended?
I think so, because I think we're over it.
Can I- Yeah, I know what you're over, but I think you're over the 50 feet. Is
Yeah,
that what you're saying? And could, I know you said earlier something about a compromise, but could you at least put in there that it's not to be more than 50 feet from the coastal bank?
Is that acceptable?
Yeah, if I want, I can amend that motion.
Okay.
To do mitigation all the way to the 50-foot buffer. Are the other, you guys
If
amenable to that?
that's- yeah.
And not beyond?
Well-
That's the question. No, that's what we're asking. Do we have to go, if it calculates out to go beyond the 50, do we need to go beyond the 50 is the question that we're asking.
Well, the 50-foot buffer is going to get you within, what, 10 feet of the planting area around the house?
Well, the 2,812 is probably going, it may get us past that with 2,812. Do we need to go past the 50 is our question.
Because you'll need some area to walk around and for maintenance, right? Is that what, the reason? Yeah.
That's why I would
Yeah,
think that
just
this
get
gets
some,
put.
I mean, if it gets
Yeah.
too big, then we'd have to move, you know,
How-
that's probably what you'd want.
Andrew, with your scale, how far is the 50 away from that planting bed behind the
It's
screen
30
porch?
feet. It's 30 feet. I know that the buffer's 20 feet wide and the buffer starts at the resource area, so it's 30 feet.
30 feet, right. No, but I mean, from 50 to that planting.
Oh,
Okay, planting bed by the house.
to the planting bed, it's 8 feet.
8 feet, so there's going to be 8 feet of walking space between if you go to the 50-foot buffer and that planting bed behind the screen porch, which would provide access
Yeah.
for maintenance and walking
Okay.
around. so.
That's good, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll amend that motion to, instead of the 2812, to
50 foot.
fully plant mitigation to the 50-foot buffer from the bulkhead.
Just to make sure if we still have the paths.
You have one
Yeah.
path?
Yeah,
We need
The 4 foot.
We need 2 paths, there's two places to get to.
Oh, for the platform and the dock, yes.
Yeah, with two paths.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then working with staff, then to figure out the mitigation plan. So you guys, I would recommend do the groundsel bush and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff at that time.
Yep.
Sounds good to me.
Second?
I am the second, and
You
I'm
are.
the second, third amendment.
Okay.
Only because I
So
trust
we
Steve
we have the
listen.
original motion and now the amendment. So we'll vote first on the amendment,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Unless there's any other discussion on the amendment.
So the first vote's on the amendment.
All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to call for the vote on the amendment. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes on the amendment.
Okay.
Okay. Any other closing thoughts before I call for a vote on the motion that has now been amended?
No, I think we've covered everything unless Drew has any other additional comments.
No other additional comments?
Okay. All right, so I'll call for a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
No.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote no. Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
If I had to recuse myself, she found out. I think they might be a builder.
What's that?
Dream Home, there's a Keller Williams
Yeah.
group that is these folks who work on home. I asked Stacy to find out if she knew if they were attached to them, so I
Oh,
would either recuse or not, but maybe I'll
is this
just,
for, which hearing?
huh?
32. Okay.
The next one, right?
It's, if you have any doubt, Aaron, I would.
Yeah, I'd rather just walk outside for a second.
Okay, now calling the 6/12 hearing, Wacoya Bay Water Body of Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Proposed aquaculture farm, Representative Self, owner of record, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This is a notice of intent, and we do not have a DEP file number
Right.
for it. So we have a request to be continued to November 2nd at 6:15 pending DEP's file number for the project.
Okay. So moved.
Second.
Thank you, and thank you. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Just when it's posted next time. I don't know if that was us or if it was how it was submitted.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely posted kind of awkward.
Yeah, we didn't put Jamie's name in there.
Yeah, I went
so
back.
we'll fix that.
All right.
Here's
yeah.
one that we did posted back in.
Yeah,
April.
it should have included,
It should be.
this should have included Jamie's name for
It
sure.
should have,
There was confusion that it was
Yeah.
state project being authorized and not an individual.
Okay.
yeah, when I first read it, I thought the state was coming in.
Yeah.
That was my only
That was-
comment.
With all due
Oversight.
luck, it got continued because of the DEP number.
Yeah.
By chance.
Yeah, you look at the notice of intent, the name and address, all that information is there. But it should be on the agenda because people look at that and
Yeah,
would
absolutely.
be interested in coming in.
Right.
Okay, so, motion's made and seconded. Any other questions or comments on that? No? Then I'll take a vote. For the record, Aaron has stepped out of the room, but we still have a quorum. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Vote yes as well. Motion carries. Now calling the 6:15 hearing for 33 Sunset Circle. Kevin and Suzanne Mulgrew, trustees, proposed deck demolition and reconstruction. Representative Marsh Matters Environmental. This hearing is continued from September 7th and October 5th. It's a notice of intent, DEP file number 433251.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yep, Mike Ball from Marsh Matters Environmental, for the record. Here representing Kevin Mulgrew, who's the owner of the property. As you mentioned, we were here in September with this project before you. we took your comments from that night and revised the project after talking to the builder and the property owner about your concerns. What I've submitted to you is a cover letter. Attached to that cover letter was a revised plan that is, I think I saw it up on the screen, done by Richard Hood. The revision date should be October 3. It should be what's in front of you. I also have a revised mitigation plan that should be part of that package. And the last thing would be a revised drawing from Dream Homes that better details the revised, what's proposed, and also includes the revisions to the design. So specific to the concerns that were discussed at the last hearing was, I'll start with Alex's, she had a question and concern about a large oak tree, which is at the south corner of the house. The original design had a set of stairs that extended beyond the face of that side of the house. And after discussing it with the builder and what your concern was, it was basically proximity of that structure to the oak. They just decided to just delete that from the footprint entirely. So there would be no stairs. The existing stairs would come out. There's an old set of timber stairs. That's definitely coming out, but they're not replacing or adding a set of stairs as part of the design. Let's see here. I think this drawing actually is that Alex Lebedev, he's the contractor. I think he did a nice job revising the drawing from what was originally shown. The original drawing was a little confusing, and it actually, the way he had drawn it, it made it look like the footprint of the deck addition was bigger than it actually was. So what we're talking about is not a 10-foot increase in depth, but a 6-foot increase in depth off the existing 10-foot deep deck. At that south corner, they would like to square off the existing deck and extend it so that it's flush with the side of the house. So we'd have, based on that drawing, a 16 by 16 foot kind of square deck area. That's the addition to the structure. I think there was concern about, or there was a question about why the deck was being expanded there. It was just a design preference from the owner. They wanted to have it in that corner, a larger area for seating rather than have it more central to the house. The pictures that were provided in the original NOI do kind of give you a good idea of what and where is being proposed. I did notice an error in one of my descriptions of photo 1. I did mention a 10-foot expansion or depth increase, and it's actually 6 feet. I just wanted to point that out. That was an error of mine. I did revise this mitigation area. The gentleman, Rick Hood, who prepared the plan and prepared the mitigation calculations, he had redone it, and he realized that the amount of mitigation was actually more than what he had originally thought. So we've increased the mitigation from what was originally, I believe, 510, and we are now up to 665 square feet of mitigation, which pretty much fills in or eliminates that entire area of shaded lawn that's on the south side of the lot. I just added basically 20 additional plantings to that original mitigation plan. As I mentioned in my letter, we talk about Bank and BVW being the resource areas. This project would not adversely impact the critical characteristics of either of the resource areas, and I think that's important to point out. The footprint of the deck addition is above existing lawn and hardscape. There'd be no natural vegetation altered as part of this project. In fact, we're going to be adding native vegetation as per the mitigation plan. So I think there's certainly an ecological benefit with the amount of mitigation that's being provided. And I think all things considered, I think this is a approvable project, and I think it does improve in kind of increase the amount of buffer zone on this particular property. That's all I have. I'd be happy to address any questions.
Thank you. Okay, I'll turn it over to commissioners first for questions or comments.
Mike, so one of the questions, I see that the builder's proposing diamond pierce, but he mentions 24-inch Bigfoot with 12-inch sonotubes, but there's no key where those are located.
Which ones? The diamond piers?
Well, it says new diamond pier, then below it says 24-inch Bigfoot with 12-inch sonotube.
New
So-
diamond pier of 24-inch Bigfoot with 12-inch sonotube.
Those are two separate things. Either you're doing diamond piers or you're doing Bigfoots.
Of 24 big.
So,
Can I touch up on that?
yeah.
So I had the same question when I was reviewing it. The diamond pier they're referring to in this is actually the attachment for the pressure-treated lumber to attach to the sonotube. The Bigfoot, you know the Bigfoot.
Yeah.
It goes underneath the sonotube. So I looked this up on a bunch of websites. It's referred to as, it's just a metal bracing where you actually attach the 4x4 or the 6x6 pressure-treated to the sonotube. So I thought it was the ones you hammer in.
Yeah.
At first,
That's a diamond pier.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
When I looked this up, I had the same question, and it showed up as an actual hardware fitting, just for that, called a diamond pier. I was very confused by it, actually.
Because, okay, I designed this decks all day long. So usually with a concrete sonotube, you put a Simpson post base in it.
Right.
But that's not called a diamond pier. Those
No,
are-
I never called it that. When I looked it up on like the Home Depot site,
Yeah.
they had one brand, it was called Diamond. Because I was extremely confused, because there's no way
Okay.
you could put a diamond pier on top of a sonotube. You
Right.
don't use any sonotube with diamond
Right,
piers.
because if you're going to use diamond piers, that's great, because you're not digging a hole, you're not pouring concrete. You're just running those three pipes and, you just dig a little shallow thing, maybe down 3 inches, you put the diamond pier in the hole and you run your pipes in.
Yeah.
That's minimal impact in a resource area.
I was very confused by that.
Yeah,
I
so if
see-
you
I
do
see-
diamond piers, that's great.
I think it's the word with. I'm not sure why that word with is in that description. I didn't notice that. You're right, because you would never have a sonotube sitting on top of a diamond pier. It's either a diamond pier or it's a sonotube.
Right, it's
Right,
one or the other,
Right.
yeah.
So I think based on the drawing, they're proposing,
Yeah.
I can see where they're proposing the new diamond piers, and it looks like there's existing sonotubes that they're going to use, probably put new 6x6 or new 4x4 posts on those sonotubes. That's how I interpret this.
Okay. Because if you want to use diamond piers, that's great,
But it looks like he's
using
Proposing.
sonotubes.
it looks like he's using, anything new is going to be a diamond pier, but he's looking to utilize the 2 existing sonotubes.
Yeah, well, those are already in the ground, yeah, that's fine.
So there won't be any Bigfoot footings underneath them? I mean, I guess there couldn't be, is what I'm saying, yeah.
New diamond pier of 24-inch Bigfoot with 12-inch. Admittedly, I'm not a contractor. I don't do these.
Sounds
So,
like a concrete sonotube to me. I think he probably mislabeled this. I mean, there's no such thing as a diamond pier of a 24-inch Bigfoot and a
Yeah.
12-inch sonotube.
of 24-inch Bigfoot, so.
Yeah. I mean, for this situation where they're going, I would imagine the diamond pier would be a better footing for the resource area, is what I would say.
For the what?
For the resource area, for the stability and for protection of it.
For the buffer zone?
Yeah, for the buffer zone, yeah.
Less disturbance.
Yeah, less disturbance.
disturbance,
You're not
yeah.
digging a hole into the ground. So
Right.
that is something that would definitely need clarification.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But that can be taken care of in conditioning as well.
Yeah,
'cause we
you
have
could
that
condition
taken
that.
back, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Steve, that was a great education on discerning between,
Yeah.
Is that why you
sonotube.
keep him on the commission? Just to-
oh, yeah, I gotta tell you, it's like a master's course in,
I was so confused, and then I saw a diamond, it was like a diamond brand Samson spring. So I was like, that's got to be what it is. That's all I thought. It's like, it has to be.
I often
So-
quote Steve in regular conversation.
Yeah, the mitigation looks good, so it looks like you've taken all our recommendations and covered everything. So that's all I have.
Anything else?
But in all seriousness, you would put that distinction as a condition.
Yes, correct. Yeah. It'd be one or the other, and I would recommend the diamonds.
One or the
Yeah,
other. That's my new favorite thing. It's got to be one or the other.
Exactly.
I'm going to go into Home Depot and say that.
You're going to confuse them. So,
Are you all set, Alex?
I'm trying to find the spot where it says it, but I thought our mitigation requirements within the 50-foot buffer were 2 to 1, not 1 to
It's-
1.
It's a sliding.
this is for the
Right,
waiver.
It
so
all
it's a different
depends on, it's
mitigation.
5-foot increments,
So he's
right?
asking for a waiver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
applying for
because
the
they're
waiver.
expanding closer
Yeah.
within the 50-foot.
So if we approve the plan as it is, we're granting a waiver for less mitigation
I
than we would
don't
normally
think so.
require.
I think he's calculated this out.
No, the mitigation covers the waiver. I believe it was for the going closer. You had the.
You must approve a waiver for work within 50 foot,
Correct.
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
But we're not, but originally, the original amount of mitigation was less than what was required under your calculations. And the reason I thought it was reasonable was because this was a second-story deck,
Right.
over lawn, over hardscape.
So the area of alteration is really where the supports are going in.
Correct.
That's the actual alteration.
But we've actually, what he's done, if you look on the plan, upper right corner, he's broken it out into 5-foot increments
Yeah,
as
yeah.
required.
Yep.
And then calculated how many square feet. And he's not talking about just the sonotubes or big feet.
Right, he's talking about the whole.
He's talking about the whole
footprint.
thing, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
So
But the mitigation for that is covered. I just wanted to definitely touch upon that.
So
So,
it doesn't need to be 2 to 1.
for this situation? No, I don't believe so.
No, I think it's already above and beyond,
Yeah,
really. I
It's
mean, you're-
beyond, it's
you're above
beyond,
2 to
yeah.
1.
You're
Yeah.
compensating for the area of shading of the entire structure, but the actual area of alteration is much smaller.
Right.
So, but what you're compensating for is the shading of the entire structure, even though it's not really, well, I guess it's up for debate as to whether or not.
It's an
it's actual-
appurtenance, though. I mean, it's the square footage of the appurtenance. It's not, I struggle following that train of thought, that it's simply shading and it is a structure within the 50-foot buffer,
Yeah.
Right, right,
and it has a square footage.
right. And so mitigation was calculated in 5-foot increments based upon the amount of square
Right,
footage.
because it's within the
in
50
buffer.
foot, so yes, it goes by the calculation chart, and that's what it followed. So the
Right.
mitigation is correct.
So for instance, the 15 to 20 foot is 1 square foot, but they have it down for 4 square feet of mitigation. Because they're so close to the,
Yeah, so it's 4 to 1.
yeah.
But the proposed deck to be built is 686 square feet, and the amount of mitigation area is 665 square feet. Am I,
But the 686 is the whole deck, I believe. Because if you
Is
go,
that, so is that the whole deck, or is that just the portion to be built add on? What is the square footage of the?
well, if you
add-on?
go, if you go 16 by 16, right? You just try 16 by 16,
Yeah, just
that's
square it off.
256 square feet.
Right.
So even if you square it off, that's 16 by 16, then you got 4 by 10, that's another 40 square feet, so.
so isn't this what's existing? This is existing.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
This
so,
area right here,
yeah, so if you're saying that's all new deck within the 50-foot buffer, this is, even if you did this line here, the square is 256, and that's 40.
okay.
So that's
Yep.
300,
So the way they
300
labeled
square feet.
it was including what was
it's less
already
than 300 square
pre-existing.
feet.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And then
understand.
you say, okay, now I got 665 square feet. so
Right,
you
right.
Okay,
Yep.
thank
Double
you.
that, yeah.
I follow.
Any other questions? Okay, any questions from the public? No? Drew, anything you want to add for this?
Nothing to add other than the comments there, which you looked like
Okay.
you've done already, so.
Okay. All right, I guess we're good to go for a motion if somebody has one.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for notice of intent filing, 33 Sunset Circle, for closing issue with, for submission of a signed 2-year contract with a qualified professional for monitoring and maintaining all mitigation plantings. The footings to be diamond piers, and to have that clarified with staff before issuing. And then with the DPW comments about dry wells.
Right.
There's no dry wells, so the DPW is recommending dry wells for all roof runoff.
It's contributing to the road runoff, and they're trying to address that.
Yeah.
On some of the town
There,
roads.
there is one,
Yeah.
and I did notice you could tell there's one at the garage corner, but.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if the conditions could be written to require dry wells at house corners where there are none, the
Yeah.
applicant's fine with that. I think it's a
Sure.
great idea. Yeah.
And, oh yeah, and the building comments said, project must seek relief from ZBA.
Correct.
No date yet, so has that been
They,
filed?
they actually do have them on the agenda.
Okay.
Dan, I can't remember. It
Yes, I'm
was-
sorry, they do. We just
December
got that in.
13th.
Yeah, December 13th. That one
Okay.
snuck in. We almost missed it.
Yeah.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Alex. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion amongst commissioners? None? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike.
I didn't put it down in the comments, but all the CUPs.
Who's on the line? Do we know who they are?
Oh, it was the owner of 33 Sunset.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so all these are passed. Don't need to read these into the record, do I?
Not unless you want to.
Okay, so let's back up to our pre- and post-hearing agenda. I believe we voted on the hearing calendar last night.
No, you said you wanted to table it.
You want
I thought-
everyone here.
You wanted everyone here.
Alex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Aaron back.
Oh, we do need Aaron, don't we?
Yeah, she's here. Where is she? You want me to go look for her? Or,
Are you here for?
Yeah, we just wanted to confirm that
yeah, Drew,
everyone's
go
good
into
to
the
go.
ladies' room, check it out.
It's on the agenda, but I don't think all the paperwork's been submitted for a COC. It's, it was for 48 Captain's Row. I
Yes.
was hoping I could speak to somebody about that.
I think it is so.
Yeah, it's on here.
Yeah, it is.
48 Captain's Row. It
It's
is
on the agenda.
It's on, it is on
Yeah.
the agenda.
It says incomplete, though.
I don't think you have all the paperwork.
No, there was some stuff missing today.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. 48 Captain's Row is incomplete, but it will be processed. What did Stacy say that it was?
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
You get the gold star for sitting through this whole thing.
Well, I'm reading my book for the book there.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm sorry, I'm having
Good for you.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but
We'll contact you tomorrow.
yeah.
to let you
Our
know
other staff in the
exactly when.
office, she said that it's something that can be taken care of very
Well,
easily.
the Cape and Islands didn't do their evaluation.
Oh, that's what it was.
in
So it
time,
was
they
missing the sign-off
submitted
letter.
the paperwork, so you don't have the paperwork.
Got it.
But I'm the owner, and the general contractor quit on me, and I've taken over as the GC.
Okay.
I'm over my head with this a little bit.
Right.
And so I'm hoping to get it all straightened out. They noticed some discrepancies from the original plan to what's there.
Okay.
I was hoping I could talk to somebody that could, on the board, that could take a look at it and
Yeah.
give me some direction.
Sure.
Which way to go.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We can reach out to you, hopefully tomorrow. I think we'll have some time tomorrow if that works.
Yeah, tomorrow would
We
be
can, we
great.
can go over what the discrepancies are and give you a pathway towards compliance.
Well, actually, I was hoping somebody could meet me at the property and
Okay.
stick an eyeball on it and
Go out to lunch.
No, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we can do that. Yeah.
sometime tomorrow, in the afternoon maybe.
Yeah, I'm just gonna look at my calendar right now, so I can tell you why you're here.
I've been texting back and forth with Raul. I think he's not feeling well.
So probably 3 o'clock, morning and early afternoon is fully booked. It'll be 3 o'clock at the
3 in
earliest.
the afternoon?
Yeah.
That's perfect. Okay,
We'll see you then.
I'll see you there.
Okay.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks, everybody.
All right, have a good night.
Okey dokey.
Kind of
Thank-
interesting listening to this stuff.
See, that interesting. Did you take notes on the Diamond Head thing?
Well, I like the way you guys all work together and everybody's happy and.
Yay.
And,
And we use polysyllables like we are.
what's the
I'm smart.
polysyllable?
I don't know.
Thank you.
That's your word for the
Take
day.
care.
That's my word for the day.
That's your word for the day.
Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Bye.
So I'm going to just back up for a second. So for the record, 48 Captain's Row is still to be,
Still to be issued, yes.
so the other two COCs.
The other two passed.
Are good. Okay, just so we have a record of that. Okay. We did not get the minutes, correct? 10-5, those didn't come out.
Oh, but Steve hasn't seen them, right?
So that's an easy one to get through. We'll just
Doing
put
them on the
that,
flight.
we'll table that to our next meeting. I need a motion to table that. We don't have
Thanks,
minutes to
Marjorie.
even look at, so.
You don't need a motion for that.
Okay. On the discussion for Community Preservation Committee application for land acquisition of 17 acres at Pickerel Cove. I'm leaning towards a motion to table the discussion on this until we can get a little bit more information about the CPA application. We
Do it.
need a motion to table that?
Motion to table.
And second,
Second from Alex. Any discussion? Okay, Alex,
yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Marjorie,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Okay. The next discussion item, land subject to coastal storm flowage, 100-foot buffers.
Vote on the 2024 meeting calendar?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up.
It's in our packet under,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. I know I have an issue with April 4th. I'm away that entire week, so as long as you're around, Alex, to chair that particular meeting, April 4th.
yeah, it should be. I'm wondering, and we totally discussed this, do we want to keep our start time at 6? Or would 6:30 be easier for people?
Are you talking about,
On the calendar.
oh,
Start time of
We
meeting.
used to,
meeting
when I first came on, it was 6:30, and
Yeah.
then we moved it up to 6. People wanted, the preference of the
Yeah.
commission at the time was to start a little bit earlier and maybe get out a little bit earlier.
so what's
All
the
the other
rationale
boards
behind
meet at
it?
6:30 or 7.
I don't get home from work until like 5:30, and then
Oh,
it's
so it's
like a
just too
mad
early?
dash trying to eat something and get here, yeah. I mean, I feel bad because the staff has to stay longer.
Can you get out of work earlier?
There you go. How about we come to you and we have the meeting at your house?
Oh my God, I know, I feel really needy even talking about this. But, yeah, I mean, I just
Well,
wanted to see
again,
what you guys all thought.
Other boards and commissions, 6:30 or 7, they typically
7
meet at.
usually.
And we were at 6:30 for the first few years I was on here, but I have no
Look,
preference
I like
either way.
the earlier one just because I like to get it done and get home earlier, but the truth of
I
the
wouldn't
matter
mind,
is.
6:30 is sort of like a nice compromise
Well,
between
that's what I was
6
just gonna say. The truth of the matter is, I'm happy with whoever's happy, so. You guys,
What if we moved it to 6:30 and like promised to be swift?
okay? Well, you notice I had to bring my
That'll
yogurt
work.
tonight. I was getting hungry, you know?
Peek it.
Set a max time of 2
That's like a New
hours.
Year's resolution.
Max.
One meeting.
Oh, no, he's gonna keep pushing.
I have no problem with 6:30.
You have a problem with 6:30?
I don't have a problem with 6:30.
That's how rumors start, March.
It is. I distinctly heard Drew say he had a problem with 6:30.
So I would accept a motion to approve the calendar as revised with a start time of 6:30, if there is one.
I'll make a motion for that.
Thank you,
Second.
Alex. Second?
Yep.
Thank you, Aaron.
Fine.
Nothing else you would like to add to that? All right, then I'll call for a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy? Yes. I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
I got to
Mark April 4th in your
I
calendar.
go to bed.
I wrote it down, I did, don't worry,
Okay.
I'll be here.
Do the other house.
So let's open up the discussion for land subject to coastal storm flow at 100-foot buffer zone. And I'll turn that over to you, George.
Sure. So, for anyone who may not be aware, we do have potentially conflicting language in the bylaw as compared to Regulation 25 when it comes to a buffer zone to a resource area. And that resource area is land subject to coastal storm flow. So in 172-2, everyone understands the difference between the bylaw and the regulations, correct? So in the bylaw language, under 172-2, it lists all of the resource areas, inland and coastal, every resource area that's protected under Mashpee's wetland bylaw and the State Wetlands Protection Act. And then in the same breath, in the same paragraph, it says, and the 100-foot buffer zone associated with these aforementioned resource areas. And that includes land subject to coastal storm flow. So in the bylaw, you read that and you don't read anything else anywhere in the regulations, you're going to assume land subject to coastal storm flow has a 100-foot buffer zone. But then when you go to the actual regulation that deals with all of the standards for land subject to coastal storm flow, Regulation 25, there is a provision under Section C2D that states the following: the provisions of Section C2 B, C, and D, which B, C, and D contain very specific standards for development within the flood zone. It states that these provisions under Section C2, B, C, and D do not apply to the 100-foot buffer zone as cited in Section 2 of Chapter 172. That's the same section I just mentioned that cites all resource areas, including land subject to coastal storm flow, have a 100-foot buffer zone. So you've got a regulation that says there is no buffer zone, and you've got the bylaw that says there is.
So
But-
I have a question.
Yeah.
The regulation is set forward by who?
It's set forward by the commission.
Okay,
Yeah. It's the commission that drafted the regulations and the bylaw, along with assistance from town council.
and regulations are
They're enabling
legal,
language.
so I just looked it up, legal directives written to explain how to implement statutes of laws.
Right.
But the bylaw itself is the stronger,
Yeah, it's the umbrella
the
language.
bigger
Yeah.
item, okay.
Yeah. So I can tell you, I spoke with the previous agent, Bob Sherman, who drafted all of these regulations, just to try and get some clarity on why there's this disparity, and his answer was they should have gone back and changed the bylaw. They didn't. When they crafted this regulation, it was subsequent to the bylaw, was the first regulatory aspect drafted as part of Mashpee's overall wetland bylaw and regulations. He wasn't even aware when I spoke to him that there was a confrontation, a conflict between these two sections. Furthermore, not in any permit that I have researched in the past and brought up for whatever reason that preceded my time with the town, nor any permit moving forward since I've been with the town, has there been any project within the 100-foot buffer zone to flood zone that has been deliberated by any commission, ever. And lastly, and most importantly, we don't have the staff or the time or the wherewithal to handle that much more jurisdiction. And I would even question what is the point of establishing a buffer zone to the 100-year floodplain. You would need to come up with standards to justify that jurisdiction and then staff to handle the enforcement. And I'm not talking one other staff member, I'm talking at least two. And good luck with that, because the town manager put pretty much the stamp on hiring new staff for the town based on the budget. Not blaming him, just explaining the reality of the situation. My own personal thoughts is I'm not interested in taking on an additional 100 feet of resource area jurisdiction, especially one that's cited in the regulation that it does not apply, and one that we have never, in the history of this Conservation Commission, as far as I know, and with correspondence with the previous agent, has ever been enforced. So,
So I hope
My-
it says an ignorant, but then who does have jurisdiction?
the building department, the Board of Health, zoning, they have town-wide jurisdiction. So,
So if it's not.
all I'm making the
allocated-
argument is that it's not something that the Concom has jurisdiction over, or has had jurisdiction.
Or never has.
Never
to the best
has,
of your knowledge.
correct.
Never has upheld.
Yeah.
Never has a what?
Upheld.
Oh,
We've had it.
Well, it's been upheld if you go with regulation 25, not
If you go with the
upheld according to-
regulation, but if you go by the law hasn't been upheld.
Well, the bylaw, yeah.
Yes.
But, so my solution to this issue is to draft an article for a future town meeting that changes the language in the bylaw, that either, whether it's an asterisk or whatever, I can draft it up, seek town council's
this
opinion as
shall
far
not,
as,
da-da-da.
but to change the bylaw language to make it crystal clear that there is no 100-foot buffer zone to the 100-year floodplain. So,
So,
open,
but
open
there's
to
no-
discussion, but just so you know, not interested in enforcing it.
Not interested, well.
Because
that-
we don't have the capability to do that. We
Right.
just expanded the buffer zone by an additional 50 feet,
Right.
which is going to be a substantial increase in time and staff. To increase another 100-foot buffer zone to the flood zone, which takes up a substantial area of town, we don't have the capability to do that.
I mean, we look at projects in just the flood zone all the time, don't we?
Right, yeah.
But most of the time, we use regulation 25,
Yeah.
like, almost 100% of the time. I don't even know how you could enforce 172.2 in Pompanesett with all the houses all amongst each other properties.
Well, we
That's all
have-
flood zone, so,
Yeah, we have an actual Excel list of every property in the flood zone in town. So we know, and when we just use the overlay on GIS to establish what
Yeah.
house is in the flood zone,
right,
anytime a building permit is pulled.
yeah. I do the same thing when somebody calls me up to do a project in Pompanesett. I go, okay, you're in the flood zone, and pull it right up, and yeah, you're in the flood zone or you're not.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you can enforce 172.2 in Pompanesett, at all. Because how do you do it, if the whole property is in the flood zone, how do you put a buffer zone to it? It wouldn't,
Well,
it wouldn't even apply,
That's
right?
another issue
Yeah.
aside from this. We're
Right.
talking about adding 100-foot, or enforcing a 100-foot buffer zone to the actual line that separates X from AE.
Right,
Yeah.
so that's, now you're pushing into different parts of town.
Then you're pushing into areas that, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the smartest way to go.
I have a couple of thoughts. Changing the regulation, and we are working on Regulation 25
Right.
right now. Changing the regulation, although not easy, is a lot easier than going before town meeting and
And-
getting 2/3 vote to change a bylaw.
And opening up the
But changing
bylaw to
regulation
discussion.
how? It's, if you agree that there should be no buffer zone to the 100-year floodplain, then you leave that regulatory language alone. Because that clearly says it does not carry a 100-foot buffer zone. So there's no need to change the regulation. The thing that needs to be changed is the bylaw.
Right, but by opening up the bylaw to town meeting, I mean, it's opening it up for discussion on any piece of the bylaw, including,
No, it doesn't.
Well, it actually closes.
You,
the
you have a
door. It's
specific
now
article drafted up for a specific portion of the bylaw. It doesn't mean the whole bylaw is open for debate. It means that particular section is. That aspect of that particular section.
Right. And basically, the amendment that you want to draft would be saying that there is a door that's open now that shouldn't be.
Yeah, it needs
There
to,
is no
it
precedent
should
to it.
coincide with
Let's
what it
close
says
that.
in Regulation 25.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anything
I've heard from other conservation commissioners in other towns
Yeah.
that they commend us for treating the flood zone as a resource area.
But
And
that
that,
wouldn't change that, would it?
Nothing changes for that.
Yeah.
The flood zone is still jurisdictional. This is a 100-year buffer zone.
It's 100.
Moving the
100-foot
buffer
buffer zone to the floodplain. That's what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about the floodplain itself.
so
I
the,
think it's a good clarification.
If you read 172-2, you'll see land subject to coastal storm flow is listed among the many resource areas listed in that section. And then it goes on to say that all of those aforementioned resource areas carry a 100-foot buffer zone. So that means land subject to coastal storm flow has a 100-foot buffer zone to it. That's what I'm looking to
so
eliminate.
you're only taking away the 100-foot
Just the buffer zone, not land subject to
Closing
coastal
the
storm flow
door.
itself.
Right.
Yeah, but it's not, I mean, Paul, what are your thoughts?
I don't want to get into a specific hearing because it's now before this commission and it's open. But there are situations where you could look at, quote-unquote, a buffer zone to land subject to coastal flow in Pompanesett, where an elevation would be roughly, and I'm going from memory, 25 feet contour all the way down to 12, and then 8 where it meets the street. And that particular hearing, and we've had others in that same area, that street is flooding all the time, and it would, because everything's coming downhill. And people want to fill it in and move things up and do whatever they want to do to stop that water from coming in. So if you had a buffer zone, and we do, maybe a situation like that could be addressed. I'm not saying that you have to look at the entire town and look at every single place, but
Yeah, but-
there are areas out there where you can just get outside land subject to coastal flow, and there can be a dramatic influence on the land subject to coastal flow from just outside of it, whether it's 10 feet, 100 feet, in this
Well, you
case,
could
100.
certainly, here's what I would offer in the face of that concern, is, and this is something that has occurred in the past, maybe not with this commission, but with previous commissions, when you've had projects that are, say, right outside the 100-foot buffer zone to any wetland resource area. It's been determined that that project, because it's such close proximity, whether it's elevation changes or whatever, the scope of alteration, right up against the 100-foot buffer, or in the case of the flood zone, right up against the AE line, right?
Yep.
Where you can make a case through an RDA, a request for determination of applicability. Does this apply to the Wetlands Protection Act? Because we believe that A is going to impact B. Outside jurisdiction is going to have an impact inside jurisdiction just because of the proximity of that work to whatever line of resource area it happens to be. You don't need to say there's a 100-foot buffer zone to the flood zone to require that. You can, all you have to do is make the case. I've read your project description. You're going to be mounding up all of these massive piles of fill right up against the 100-foot setback. That's going to require some conditioning. You need to come in for a permit. And the commission would be justified in that scenario.
Where would we be triggered?
Huh?
Where would it be triggered?
Because you're asking for a request for determination of how the Wetlands Protection Act applies to this project. You're looking at more information to be gleaned.
I understand that we can ask it. I'm asking where in the process would it be triggered?
What do you mean in the process?
Where in the building permit process does that get triggered? If the whole thing is outside of the 100
Because
foot?
we get sent projects that are, well, we could certainly let the commission, the building department know, send us all the building permits through Permitize. We
Right.
can take a look, all the plans are uploaded right there, we can take a look at where the property is in relation to a resource area and say, yeah, we're gonna reach out to these folks and let them know they need to file a permit with us.
Yeah, I was just curious if you did look at them, all of them as it stands now. Do you like sign up?
They usually send us ones that are close to resource areas, but not, and as well as ones that are in resource areas. Just because of the uncertainty of what I just went over.
Yeah, so in Falmouth, when I was signing off on building permits, I had to sign off on every building permit and sign off whether or not it was within the resource area or not. And like, we were the catch.
We don't sign off on all of them, no.
Okay,
Only the ones that are in close proximity to wetlands, may not be within the buffer, but close enough to be indecisive about it. But not everyone, no. If we did, there wouldn't be much time to do anything else. I don't know how Falmouth does it, but I think they have more staff than us.
they do. They do.
So something that would be in the buffer zone would just be handled as an RDA.
If it's, we feel that it's going to have an impact into the flood zone, yeah. But if something's like, 50 feet outside the flood zone,
Right.
and it's like repaving a patio or something like that, we're not gonna request an RDA for that. It'll be on a case-by-case basis. But I guess my concern by leaving the language in the bylaw as it is means that we have to enforce the entirety of the 100-foot buffer zone. How can you come in and say, well, it's a case-by-case basis? Well, is it case-by-case in the 100-foot to salt marsh too? Or is it just flood zone?
Right.
So I think you need to be consistent when it comes to resource areas. I don't think you can say, flood zone, we're just going to partially.
Right, no, and
And-
I completely agree with you. My concern is that we're taking away an opportunity to have greater impact, conservation impacts, simply because we haven't been consistent in the past.
I don't think
Like,
you're taking it away because regulation 25 says it doesn't apply.
but the bylaw says it does.
So?
But the bylaw is the overarching, it is the umbrella, like, the regulation falls
Already
under that.
acknowledged that they should have changed the bylaw and they didn't. It was an oversight. Needs to be corrected.
Yes, and there's two ways you can correct it. You can correct it by getting rid of it, or you can correct it by upholding it. So,
By upholding it, how are we going to enforce that?
well, it's just taking a second to look at, like, what does that really look like? Is that truly overburdening to the office, or is it,
Yes. Yeah, 100%. That's a substantial addition of enforcement area. You know how big the flood zone is, right?
I do.
Yeah. So think about adding 100 feet to every single area of the flood zone.
And I just imagine what this town would look like if this had been upheld for the last 30 years.
What's that?
If there was a buffer zone to the flood zone, I feel like that there would be way more plantings and buffer strips everywhere in town. It would be a way bigger,
Just being as honest and upfront with you as possible, we can't enforce it. That's the bottom line,
Yeah.
and we need to fix it.
You know, it's interesting to have this conversation because everybody has a good point, but when we were going through Ways and Means in the legislature on the statewide, same thing, same issues. It was a very legitimate point of whether or not it was enforceable. And the idea of putting something through that sounds very good and that a lot of people would support, if it can't be enforced, was very much frowned upon by the founders, you know, of the legislature and the state laws on concept, everything, not just what the issues that we deal with. So I think it's a legit issue to say, what's the point really to make ourselves feel good if we can't enforce it? And that applies to a lot of good ideas
Right.
that just cannot possibly be enforced.
I just wonder if it can't be enforced because there are things that can't be enforced because the logistics are super challenging and it's just dirt bikers on the trail. No, that's not enforced because no one wants to take that on. Like that is different to me than saying, oh, we just don't have the staff and can't do it, because then like we could, like that can be changed, right?
Well, I suppose does anyone know the frequency with which this issue would come before? Suppose Drew has to go out and hire 2-3 more people, and they have to go through A, B, C, D, very arcane applications that may or may not make a difference at the end of the day when there are so many other things that we are strapped for resources, strapped for staffing.
That would make a
My God,
bigger
the whole
difference.
water issue has been something where you look back 30 years and you go, what the hell were they thinking that they didn't do anything?
Right.
But it's allocation of very limited resources, and where do we want to put the time and the money and the labor?
Right.
Well, the other thing too is, this is going to be a 180-degree shift from what Drew said historically has not been done. Like, okay, yeah, if this has been followed all the way along from when
But
the
just not-
bylaw went in effect, it would be one thing, but now you're trying to tell somebody, okay, here we are 20 so years down the road, we're going to, now, yeah, okay, it's a bylaw, we're going to enact this. Well, it's going to be a hardship for, how many properties around town, since we already pushed back, we just pushed back from 50 and 100 to 75 and 150 on buffer zones. Now we're going to tell the townspeople, okay, now, even though we haven't paid attention to it for the last 20 years, now we're going to enact this bylaw. It's going to affect,
I know that it
More
makes us
properties.
look bad that we haven't been upholding our bylaw for the last 30 years, but the
Yeah,
bylaw
that's
is there.
understated,
Like that's, I mean, I feel like, I can see it both ways, like certainly if there's not the staff to be able to do it, okay, then something needs to change there. But simply not going by a bylaw that we have that was written just because there's been folks have overlooked it and not
Yeah.
been able to do it. Like, I feel like just getting rid of something simply
I know.
because it wasn't done, that feels weird too, right?
But it's possible. I mean, at the time, it was, there are lots and lots of examples that we could all give of really good ideas. Why don't we do A, B, and C? And when it comes right down to it, everything about human interaction and everything that we govern has to do with making choices of limited resources for an unlimited set of demands. That was always the way that we looked at it at Ways and Means. Unlimited demand. and good
I don't mean
demand.
to interrupt, but I have to leave within the next 5
He
minutes.
has limited,
So,
So-
it's a personal thing with my mother.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
we need to wrap this up. If you want to continue the conversation to the next meeting, that's fine. Memo on conservation purview, you can read through that. We can continue that to the next meeting if you want, but I am out of time.
did you
so.
give us,
Okay.
other than the first thing that you sent us on the purview? That's what you're talking about. There wasn't anything in addition that I might have missed?
No,
No, that was the original, okay.
yeah.
All right, good.
So, okay, so before Drew goes, Mr. Chairman, if I make a motion to accept Drew's recommendation.
Recording in progress.
To make a motion to change 172.2, we take a vote on it. So, and then if the vote fails, then where do we go from there? If the vote passes, then he can proceed and keep moving forward. To clarify
If
this
you were to
issue.
make that motion and the vote failed, then we could go back to discussion
Right,
Okay,
and
either way it'll work.
okay,
C or D, whatever.
okay. All right, so I make a motion to, for Drew's recommendation to change 170, draft a article to change 172.2 and have it reviewed by town council for submission to town meeting.
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion, further discussion? None? I'll add to the discussion. In looking at the environmental crisis that the town of Mashpee is now in, I think that a Conservation Commission going before town meeting, asking to reduce environmental protection that we have on the books, the optics are terrible. It's my own personal opinion. If it's a capacity issue, and I'm clearly hearing that from Drew and Dan, then the town needs to provide the capacity.
Right.
We have our hands full in Mashpee. Look anywhere, look everywhere. You're right, Marjorie. When the demands exceed the capacity, you've got a problem. Those demands are exceeding our capacity. Rather than go before town meeting and weaken a bylaw that protects the environment of this town, I would rather see us go before town meeting and ask for money to strengthen the capacity that this town sorely needs to protect its environment. That's my viewpoint. Anything else?
Which I'm just, well, I don't want to keep Drew here. I don't know what the process is for asking for more money at a town meeting. You have to wait
Well,
until
we
the
have
budget.
to, so I can explain that before I go.
Okay.
Every department head is responsible for coming up with their budget for their respective department. It just happened less than a month ago for the fiscal
That's
year
what I thought.
2025.
It only happens once a year, right?
Once a year, yeah, and we're always a year ahead with the fiscal year. So we just finished the 2025 fiscal budget, so we're already covered up to 2025. There will be no new positions until 2026.
Gotcha.
We start the process next November or October. And actually, we're looking to push back doing the budget by a month because it seems to be popping up right when we finish it, so, and it's a lot of work. We're given a mandate every year from town manager, every department head, with maybe the exception of fire, police, and DPW, but the departments here in town hall, to submit a level-funded budget without new positions, at least not positions that weren't previously funded. I worked for a period of almost 3 years by myself with no assistant agent. And it took an act of God by me to lobby for an assistant agent that started out the first 3 years part-time. Then it took even more urging by me to get that back up to full-time, which it initially was when the position was created. I started as the assistant agent full-time.
And you had a
And
full
it
head
took
of
me
hair, I bet.
4 years of lobbying to get it back up to a full-time. That's an established position.
Wow.
The thought process or the prospect of trying to get one more position, much less two, which I feel would be adequate to fully cover all of the jurisdiction that we now have with the 50-foot buffer expansion and potentially covering the 100-foot buffer zone to the flood zone, would be an economic impossibility, in my honest opinion. Based on how much I've had to scratch and claw just to get the assistant position back up to a 40-hour work week. Not going to happen, my honest opinion. Now, you can fight the good fight and try to lobby on my behalf, which I have no problem with, all I can say is it's not going to happen. It's just not. We're on the verge of people possibly losing hours, you know, if we don't, because of the big budget items that are coming before this town, most of them associated with water quality, sewering. So don't forget that. You know, losing the 100-foot buffer zone to the flood zone compared to all the money the town is putting towards sewering, which one is going to actually effectuate better change? Think about that for a second. I don't even think it's a contest. What are you honestly, you know, going to reap in terms of additional enforcement to a 100-foot buffer zone? It's a flood zone. Monetarily speaking, that you have to invest in not only salary, but medical benefits, retirement, you know, the whole package. Pretty substantial amount of money. When you're already spending all this money on sewering and upgrading the town's stormwater systems, and you're doing projects that are going to effectuate real change, and in some cases, pretty quick change, as opposed to a hit or miss buffer zone enforcement on projects that may or may not have any sort of impact whatsoever. So put that out there as food for thought when you're talking about water quality improvement and financial commitment to achieve that goal. Which one is going to actually effectuate greater change? Spending money on sewering, which, believe me, is only going to get more expensive. You come back as a department head and ask for more money because you need more staff, and they're already spending millions on sewering, you can only imagine what the response is going to be. Good luck, is all I can say.
It's the choices. that's
And
all.
I'm not saying don't bother, but don't expect to hear
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
encouraging if you do try to, you know, lobby for more staff. Because from my experience, I'm lucky we have Dan at 40 hours right now. Lucky.
So Caitlin started as part-time?
She did.
She did.
For the first 2 years.
Wow.
3 years, actually. Yep, part-time. Scratching and clawing to get that up to full-time.
Every
And
step
I
of
was the last full-time agent. I went almost 3 years without any assistant agent, because they didn't believe that my department was that busy.
Oh,
I have
Holy
since
crap.
shown how busy we truly are. And that was in the absence of taking on any restoration projects at that time. Now we are. So,
well, what are our options right here tonight, Mr. Chairman? Can we table, can we,
We have a motion.
I have a motion
oh,
to-
your motion is to go along with Drew.
Yep,
Still has
yeah,
to be
and it's
voted
been
And we're in
seconded.
discussion of the motion. So if there's no other discussion, I'll call for a vote. Nothing else? Alex?
No.
Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy?
No.
I vote no as well.
Oops.
Motion does not carry. So I would recommend that we take this up for discussion at the next meeting.
Okay. And may I just make a note that, just as one commissioner, I'd be willing to come to a special meeting if you want to devote time to this and to the, the purview issue thing. My brain is in a fog, it's getting late. But
All right,
If you
thanks,
wanna-
Drew.
thanks, Drew, I hope everything
luck.
goes well with your mom.
I'm open to meet anytime.
I'm just
I'm
saying,
retired.
for the record, I mean, you know, we meet every 2 weeks. If we want to do one in between, if it's not a hardship on anybody else, I'd be willing to do that.
I can do that too.
You can do that.
Yeah. I think that's
Because you're a good Juby.
sometimes.
I do have a couple of things, because it is on our agenda, that I'd like to at least begin a discussion on commission purview and other regulatory boards. So bear with me on this, because I was hoping that Drew was going to be here to give his thoughts and views on it, but Dan, you might have some things to chime in with. We've been down a fairly long road with projects in this town, at least the time that I've been on the commission, with proposals that are concurrently running with planning board, conservation, building department's looking at them, the health department's looking at them, the zoning board is looking at them. We're constantly asking, did the health department weigh in on this? You're the champion of asking. And we've been told that everybody's purview is what it is. I get that. But I also am very dissatisfied with the fact that we as a commission sit here and spend hours and hours and hours on a project, not knowing what zoning is going to do with it, not knowing what planning, I mean, look at the project we had tonight. This thing's been going on, seems like forever. So I really think, and more than I think, I know, because I was on the interview committee for the new position of Community Development Director. We interviewed a candidate for that position.
What was the
And
title?
that Community Development Director. And that person will oversee planning, zoning, conservation, and health. And my first task to whoever gets hired for that job is to steer the process correctly. I know casually, Drew has said, if you have a problem with another board that's working on a project that you're working on, go to their meetings. I did.
Oh, it takes.
I went to several of them, and I was totally ignored as your chair of the Conservation Commission by the zoning board. And
They
they
wanna
went
know why
ahead.
you're there?
They went ahead to approve projects that I voted against, but I was in a minority on this commission, but they paid no attention to what I was asking. Those projects are now in court. They're in Superior Court. They're being appealed because according to the applicants, they worked outside of their purview. They didn't enforce the laws that they have on their books. I went and I researched the zoning laws for the town of Mashpee. And I did a search, and there are at least 26 references in the zoning bylaw to wetlands.
Oh.
Some of those references knock on the door of hearings that we had here tonight. And these projects will go over to zoning, and if the law is being applied the way I read it, and I'm not a lawyer, but I can read it, just as I could read the jurisdiction of land subject to coastal flow for us. Projects that are increasing a footprint in land subject to total flow, coastal flow, if there's no upland, there's no way to calculate that footprint. They shouldn't be increased. They should go with the legally permitted footprint of the home. So I get being out of your purview. I understand that 100%. But the process, the protocol of an applicant that goes through this building, through various boards, that needs to be guided and steered by a person who is going to be in a position to oversee all these departments. And I think that's why this position is coming in, as Community Development Director. Because way too often, we sit here and work on things and work on things and work on things, and then it gets somewhere else, and our work isn't even looked at. They'll get a letter from the Conservation Commission, project approved. Doesn't say that, 3 people dissented or 2 people dissented, and these are the issues. Nothing's looked at. Oh, conservation's okay with this. Well,
And I think too, for me anyway, when I bring up other boards and commissions, I'm almost doing it to red flag them so that they're like, oh, yeah, let's actually look at that one, because it's not a simple process for them. So I know it's not I think we were called inappropriate for doing that, but if it's a way to just flag them and be like, hey, like, hopefully this gets picked up by zoning or whomever also, and they really take a look at it. I'm not trying to tell them how to do their job. It's just saying, like, this is a really hard one, we're grappling with it, and hopefully you grapple a little hard too.
Yeah.
well, my hope is that this new position will probably be a worthwhile thing in terms of solving this dilemma that we
Can I
have.
ask a question about the new position? What's the status and to whom would they report? No idea.
All I know is there was a position open,
Maybe it would
and
be Rodney. Would it be Rodney?
Probably.
Yeah,
Yes.
probably.
I would assume it'd be Rodney,
I
because
would.
all the
Yeah.
department heads already report to
They,
him. I would
be
just
under the
assume.
town manager. And they only solicited applicants internally, and the 4 candidates that would have been solicited would have been the chairs of the various departments, conservation, health, building, and.
But this is not like a chair position. This would be a paid position, a manager.
It's like a task that's going to be added on to their workload. They're not bringing in,
Oh.
they're not
so
bringing in a
people-
new employee. You just
Oh, they're
heard
not.
what Drew had to
That,
say
that I
about.
did know. This is just going to be an extra task to whatever.
An
you-
extra task to somebody. They're gonna
Yeah.
choose one of the ones that already has a hell of a lot of.
10-4, not me. So.
Well, they all do. They all do.
But so, all right, so
Not an
can I
extra
just say,
person.
as long as you've got this on the floor, I feel so strongly, I know maybe all of you think I'm annoying, but I do feel so strongly that it's absurd and sometimes obscene that as commissioners, this is such an important place here, this Conservation Commission. Sometimes some people don't even know we exist, and other people, like the New York Times calls on January 1st and says,
Yep.
what the hell have you guys been doing, if anything? And here's the sludge, and you have someone working for the town who tells you you should be doing A, B, and C, and you're not doing it, and there's no real answer to that. So I do think it would be irresponsible, my personal opinion, if you're sitting here and you're listening to something, to not ask a question about septic, to not ask a question about, well, have you been there yet? Because let me tell you something, if you don't do that, and I've been a homeowner down here 30 years, there's a lot of incentive to look the other way and to not do the more expensive thing.
Right.
And we pay for that dearly. In retrospect, if we had been doing more oversight and intercommunication between different commissions and different committees before a project gets approved, we would be in a lot better position than we're in right now. I think, it's just my personal opinion. And I know, and some have come and said to me, just don't do it, stop talking about those things. I think it's important. And people are watching, and I think they should know that we care about. It's a bugaboo. So a bugaboo left silent is no incentive at all to do the right thing, and I feel like we have that obligation.
I also, yeah, and I also think it's too easy to be siloed and just
Sure it is.
not see the bigger picture. So, I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Well, my thought is
I
that
wish Drew were here because I know he had strong feelings about it.
when the person is hired to fill this position,
But they're not, it's not hired, it's just,
well,
Told
when
to?
they're assigned this
Okay.
position.
When this great person that's already
Okay.
overworked,
When that's done,
Gets
I'm going to ask
I
you
don't know if
to
that's what I
come
call it, so, yeah, yeah.
before the commission.
And
so that
before
we
they
can-
have a nervous
so that we can
breakdown.
express all of these concerns.
Okay,
And
yeah.
I'm sure the person's going to go to all the departments to find out what's working and what isn't. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I would do. And I think this discussion would certainly be worth its weight in gold.
and can
because
I just say one
It's
more
been
personal
one of the
thing?
most frustrating things
Oh,
that
yeah.
I've dealt with on this commission
bet.
since I've joined it.
Well, I would like to go on the record and thank you for all the meetings you go to. Every time I try to get you, Mr. Chairman, you're at a meeting.
I'm at a meeting.
And,
You're busy.
and I'm happy to hear you're at the meeting until Chris, my husband, will say to me, the chairman has no time to himself. Why are you so happy he's at the meeting? I said, well, it's at the planning board meeting, and they're talking about A, B, and C. So I thank you for that. I know that it's a thankless job, but I love that you're there,
Well,
yeah.
because it's the second best thing to actually having an inter-commission
Yeah.
liaison, and maybe this other position could fill that need.
Okay, people are kind of packing up and wanting to go.
Yep,
Is
I make
there
a
any of
motion
these-
to adjourn.
Before I accept that motion, is there anything pressing on these updates, Dan? I don't think there is, but
On the updates,
Checking with
as
you.
of right now, they're going to be updated again. The biggest one going up is the NOAA grant for the Upper Quashnet. The APCC is putting together that now. It's due very soon.
Yes.
Very, very soon. So I've already read the first draft, and they are adjusting it as we speak. And we'll see where the next draft goes, but that looks fantastic for a project. And then, yeah, the rest is just pretty much the same right now. Chop Jake, we're going to go through the next process, and that's
Yep.
that.
Okay. Okay, great.
Second.
Steve has the motion made and seconded. No discussion, I assume. I'll take a vote. Steve, you're closest to the door.
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes, sir.
Aaron?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.